Robyn and the family and the foolishness. So far, we covered the whole thing with her being married in the very short time, because originally they held it out that Robyn was divorced in 2007, but she her divorce wasn't finalized until 2009 when she
Yeah.
met Cody in 2000. Cody and the family in 2009. That's when they started courting, and it took them
Mhm.
a year to get married. So they were married again in 2010. So we
Mm.
were going through all that, and we just hit the point where we were talking about Shira. Now, before we get into any of that stuff, the hero story, I was talking about the hero and the power. Before we get into any of that stuff, did you have anything that you wanted to add to anything that we had talked about or whatever?
So you just covered the very beginning, kind of like, yeah, I felt like she was trying to be as vague and misleading as she could at the very beginning
Mm,
with dates and times and all of that. I mean, when you sit down and put it together, there's no mention of the reason why she got married when she was 21.
right.
Um, and that's completely left out of the book altogether, which I think, coming from an LDS and AUB church, is a significant part. I mean, this would have been her opportunity to own something, to be
Mm,
relatable. It's like, you know what? This is not an unheard story in society today.
right.
So if she would have just said, like, listen, I mean, she very cringily tried to, in front of all of the kids, sort of say it later on in the worst possible way. But in the book, she wouldn't have even had to go through that horrible thing. I'm sure she did part of that in the actual show because people were finding out and putting two and two together and calling her out on it. If she would have just
Mm,
been upfront and honest right from the beginning and said, listen, this happened and I tried to make it right by my faith and the way I was brought up. I tried to do the right thing, to marry the person, to have a long life. That was my intent. This is the way, like, it could have been something that would just been kind of brushed off and people would have just been like, oh, but no, it has become like the big scandal of it all. And she
right.
still to
Right.
this day really kind of hasn't addressed it, except for that whole awkward scene over there with poor, they kept, I didn't even know at the time when I watched that episode too, that Dayton was a result of premarital sex on her part. And
Mm,
that when she kept talking about this horrible mistake and everything, and how, just how traumatic and all of it was. And he's staring at her like, now in hindsight, I'm thinking, did he know? Did he know? 'Cause
right.
that would really, really be awful. And even if he didn't know at that time, he knows now.
Right.
And to
Right.
go back and look at that episode when she treated it like trash and he threw it away and something so precious, and like, this your baby was the
Right.
result of this. I
Right.
that it's really it makes it extra cringe to watch it
Yeah.
right now.
It's
It
cold
really,
blooded. It's cold blooded. But that's
mhm.
an excellent point though, because I neglected to mention that. And like you said, that would be a point where you could have, like, and I think that there's that subtle part of Sister Wives where they don't want to bridge into the normalcy of regular relationships. They want to pretend like, oh, we're just like everybody else, but they
Right.
don't want to own the part where they are like everybody else, where they
Mhm.
are doing the same things that everybody else is doing, and they fall into the same traps and foibles that many young folks find themselves falling into with
Right.
accidental pregnancies, premarital sex,
Mhm.
etc., etc. It's not
Mhm.
that it's a terrible thing. I mean,
Mhm.
if you are a young person and you experiment, as some young people do, it things may happen, because at the end of the day, whether we like it or not, we may consider it to be a recreational activity, but the whole purpose of it is to make other people.
Right.
So it might
Right.
happen. It very
Right.
well may happen.
It's one of
You
the
know,
things that happens, yes.
right? And one of the consequences.
That's right.
But but as we get into the whole action, and this is where I thought I was mentioning earlier that I think that there was a way that Robyn was trying to present herself, because she was trying to present herself as though she was the innocent, naive,
Mhm.
unaware person who was coming into this relationship with the whole idea of like the honeymoon. I wanted
Mhm.
the honeymoon relationship because, clearly in marriages, you never argue. And I make the point that you will argue in anything that you care about and that you feel passionately about, you will find a source of disagreement at some point. If
Right.
where I always say, if especially when I talk to some of my guy buddies and stuff, and like, look, man, if you are saying that you're going home and you're having an argument or discussion with your lady, there is a point for you to be able to fix it and change it. Where you
Mhm.
need to start getting worried is when she don't want to argue with you no more. If she don't care to argue with you or had a conversation,
Mhm.
then then
Right.
it's a wrap, baby. You need
She's
to start
moved on already.
right. You need to start looking at apartment listings
Yes, right.
or figure out how you gonna sell a house, what you gonna do, because you're in trouble
You're
at
right.
that point.
And I just found that part interesting too, that she kind of glossed over that she makes the relationship sound magical between her mom and her stepdad.
Mhm.
When the reality of it was he spent the majority of the time with his wife and first kids. And
Right.
he's 14 years older than Alice. So
Mhm.
there could have been multiple kids. I don't know. I've never been able to I never tried actually, but I've never stumbled across or tried to find all the deets on the other family. I would love to. I'd love for them to write a book. But
Right.
so I don't know, but I do know that he's 14 years older than Alice. And
Mhm.
so when he met nice young Alice, he was all caught up and she snatched him. Um, so what happened was Alice keeps talking about how you need to be the good wife and the nice wife and the stress-free life, and this is what she's teaching Robyn. And so Robyn did the same thing. I'm going to hire a nanny. I'm going to hire a housekeeper. I'm going to do this because when Cody comes here, and she said that on the show, he shouldn't have any stresses or have to deal with anything, even the kids. He shouldn't have to deal
Right.
with. Like he gets all me. No wonder he's there all the time. He gets just me this entire time that he's here. And that's what Alice taught. The only thing that she didn't pick up from Alice is you should also have a clean house.
Right. Right.
But besides that, and then eventually there was a housekeeper. So it did start to get clean. But that was kind of that stuck out to me too, how she drops this nugget of making it sound like it was so amazing when he was rarely there. He was not there for
Mhm.
any holidays. She admitted that. Their Christmas was always in January. And so was it that great? Really? I mean,
Right.
I don't know. Maybe it was after he divorced wife number 2 and moved in with Alice and then took her and then adopted Robyn and the rest of the siblings, which I don't. Do you know how many siblings Robyn has?
I saw in there where he said where in his obituary it has listed that he had 8 children.
He had 8 children. Okay.
Right.
And then
Yeah.
how many did it say how many he had from the first wife?
No, well,
You
it
don't
probably
know.
did with the
Between the
last
2.
names, but yeah, I
So
don't
between the
recall.
2
But
of them, I should double check that obituary because I really don't know. I know that he and Alice had a kid together, after Robyn, so I know there's I think it was a younger brother, but I don't know
mhm.
about anyone. She never talks about any other siblings really in it, and she never talks about, which is another part of this, "Oh, like, this was, like, the favored wife and all that." Robyn never speaks on her, other mom, because I think it wasn't another mom to her because she really wasn't living
Right.
polygamy as much as she claimed she was living polygamy. But there's
Right.
no conversation about it, and there's no conversation about siblings over there either. Like she's getting together with those siblings and that.
Right.
So I'm curious. Although I know now that I say that, I might have to backtrack that. Maybe was that nanny that was her sister? Was that one of the other? I'm thinking maybe I heard
I
somewhere
think
that
that
was.
was her niece.
Oh, that was
That
her
was her
niece.
niece.
That was her
Yeah.
niece. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was her
All
niece.
right.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
the way, even the way they presented the niece during that time, they said that she's here because she's in school and she's getting her degree in education or whatever,
Mhm.
and they were helping her out. But it wasn't really them helping her out as much as she was helping them out
Yeah,
because she wanted to
absolutely.
create that perfect environment at the house.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
even as I expressed earlier, when you're concentrating on creating a honeymoon effect at your house,
Mhm.
the place of no problems, that means that you're not addressing any of the issues that are
Exactly.
confronting you and your relationship, which means
Mhm.
that your relationships become problematic
Mhm.
because you have problems that are not being addressed and they
Mhm.
just are left unattended. And if
Yeah.
that happens, then you could eventually find yourself in a very bad
Yeah.
situation.
And I think
You
that's
know,
what happened with COVID, James. If the that's where she all of a sudden didn't have, she was the house that everything was fun. This is the fun house.
right?
I'm the good time gal. And the other wives are all your problems that nag and complain about everything. But I'm not going to do that to you when you're here. I'm going to be the good. Well, then she gets Cody full time. And you can't keep that up full time. That charade and that facade, no wonder she wanted to encourage marrying people to keep coming back. It's like, I
Right,
need you to
right.
go so I can like let the guard down.
I need my breaks. You got to build the
Yeah,
breaks in.
like, I need to stop. Yeah, exactly. I've had enough.
Right.
So she was probably, I mean, I'm sure that was a major stressor on their marriage, as they both claimed it was, but for multiple reasons, but mostly because she was acting and faking it for so many
Mhm.
years. That was the persona she put on, and you just can't keep that up 24/7. You can't.
Right, right. Well, there's also a point too where Cody had made or at least taken a position that he had considered leaving. Because if you recall back in season 18, he said, sometimes I just want to get in my car and leave, but I'm not going to because Saul and Ari, the only two people who care
Mhm.
about me, I'm gonna hurt them and I can't leave them. But
Mhm.
he was even considering leaving Robin. And I think that a big reason as to why that might have occurred wasn't because he was so heartbroken about Mary and Christine and Janelle leaving. I think it's the reality of having to deal with this person as a person, which is a weird place, especially from like just from as a guy growing up when you're very very young and you sexualize women, right? And
Mhm.
you strictly look at them as a sexual outlet, and you
Mhm.
don't look at them as people. They're merely basically life support systems for their genitals.
Mhm.
When you look at them that way, the shock that you have when you realize that these are people with hopes and dreams and aspirations and goals and things that they actually want to accomplish that
Right.
is above and beyond anything having to do with you. That is a rude awakening for a lot of guys. And I
Mm.
think that it's weird to me that Cody, when he was talking about it, this is something that he didn't really encounter until he was a middle-aged man. And
Mm.
it's in a way it's very sad that it took him that long to realize that, hey, they may want to do things that don't have anything to do with me. They
Mhm.
have hopes and dreams that don't involve me at all. And then just realizing that they're a whole person. They existed before I came into their life at 20 or 30 years old.
Yeah.
They didn't just pop into existence to make me happy.
Mhm.
They had their whole life ahead of them.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what one of the weird things where Cody kind of finds himself with his confrontation with Robin as she is starting to express her issues and problems, and he's having to see a lot of the cracks and a lot of the holes in the walls as far as the wonderful life that she created for him, the illusion that she created for him in that honeymoon environment. Now all of a sudden he's getting the real Robin, the upset Robin. We need
Mhm.
to deal with these problems, Robin, as opposed to the don't worry about it. Go over to
Mhm.
Janelle's house, just leave, make sure you take the bills with you to pay them,
Yeah.
but just go check out one another wives.
That's why they're both crying and arguing now.
Right. And what's weird too, and that's also a point that when you do like the marriage things, like when you have those conversations, especially when you're talking about relationships and it's starting to get more serious, one of the big things that like even marriage counseling or pre-counseling, what they would talk to you about or should talk to you about is how many kids you want, obviously, what your financial situation is and where your financial situation is going. Because when push comes down to shove, when people break up or they have problems, it's not just because of affairs and somebody cheating, but it's that damn money.
Yeah.
Like, it's money will break your relationship up. And
Yeah.
if you're not used to dealing with a person as a person, then you can't see yourself struggling with that person. If I'm used to dealing with your wallet and all of a sudden the wallet go bye-bye, then I go
Mhm.
bye-bye with the money. You know what I mean? And I think
Mhm.
that that's kind of where a lot of fans suspect that Robyn will find herself.
I think so too. I really do. I don't think, I mean, who could tolerate him for much more than I think the other wives tolerated him as long as they did because they weren't a sister wife. Like, he kind of is the perfect guy for having plural wives because, like, who could take him 20,
Right.
years on end all day long? I mean, it's insufferable. So I felt like they can break them up a little bit, and I can't imagine Mary that Robyn is going to be able to tolerate it for too many years. We did a poll at my last live. What would you rather have? These were like two dreams of mine in the sister wives hemisphere. And one of them was that a forensic accountant comes in and completely goes through all of the Brown's books all the way back. Like, we've seen all the money since 2010 when it all started, and that it gets released. It all gets leaked. Janelle manages to let it all just get leaked. And I even said, it doesn't mean that she's necessarily going to get money back now. That we're just saying it's an open book now, which I think would be more mortifying than even Robyn and Cody being told they have to pay marrying Janelle money, or even Christine. I think Christine's kind of like, you can keep it, I don't care. But
Right.
Janelle and Mary, definitely Janelle deserves her just due. And I know that it would incense them to be told they have to pay it. But worse than being told they have to pay any money is just everybody in America seeing the spending habits and where the money came in and went out for all of these last 15 years. So that's option number one. Option number two was, would you, all right, so we have forensic accounting, and then the option number two was pseudo Robyn Brown comes into their lives. So I mean by that a young, between 5 and 10 years younger than Robyn, about 10 pounds lighter, maybe 20 pounds lighter than Robyn, somebody with some worldly expertise and feminine wilds comes into the family, and Cody brings her in as another wife. And when we look at everything that Robyn says about all the other wives in the book, and then everything she said through the years as well, to be able to put it back in her face and say, well, are you handling it like this? Because she's very critical about how her sister wives are handling conflict or handling her coming into the family. And she has a lot of accusations for them. So I would just love to see what would happen if somebody else younger came in and the shoe was on the other foot. Oh, and by the way, that person didn't have a job either. And came in with 50 grand in debt that they're going to have to start to pay off as well. And was somebody who spent even more than Robyn did, or we'll just say equivalent to the amount of money that Robyn spends. Those two scenarios are such dreamscapes for me. That I just couldn't decide. So I'm like, what do you guys want to do? Actually, when it came down to the vote too, it started off pretty 50-50, but most of the people erred on the side of the forensic accountant because they just didn't want any other girl to have to go through marrying Cody. Like, we just don't want, and God forbid more children be brought into the family, and that he would just mess them up. So in the end, we'll do the forensic accounting. But yes, that just kind of goes along. It just made me think about that we did that last week in there. Yeah, just yeah.
Well, even with that, like, that kind of leads into a point I was going to make because I made a promise earlier. Because I wanted to tie in the whole idea that she brought up about the concept of her Shira character. Right. Again, I think it taps into like her presenting herself as this young, innocent, naive person.
Mm-hmm.
But the concept of the Shira person who's going to protect her, and this is supposed to be her guardian and all that. There is, on one hand, before we get into like the whole idea of her creating this alter ego to protect her from somebody hurting her,
Mm-hmm.
I think there's another point in here that we should actually talk about, because she says she suffered a lot of pain and hardship in her previous relationship. She had been badly mistreated and misled by her ex-husband. Misled out like, oh, you think I'm rich? Gotcha. Just because I'm family royalty don't mean that I have money.
Mm-hmm.
But she talks about, because I can see a scenario where it's very funny to me that somebody who just happens, and there's a difference, and I admit that there's a difference between coincidence and causation, right? There's a difference between like somebody who just happens to keep finding themselves in situations where they are in prime real estate as far as their relationships are concerned, and somebody who just happens to fall in love with these particular people who just happen to be in these prime situations. And it's funny to me that, you know, when she marries this first gentleman, that sets her up in one way. As a young person, not really maybe understanding how the system works, she doesn't understand it. Just by marrying him, that doesn't put you necessarily in a position where you can make a ton of money and make a lot of moves.
Right.
But when she makes her second decision, and Shira is right there to make sure that she enforces it, and she marries somebody who's going to be on TV. He has 3 established wives. He's technically a property owner, so on and so forth. And he presents more of an opportunity, which we'll get into in a little bit with the cousin. It just strikes me that maybe Shira had pointed her to a family who could provide the things that she wanted for herself. And provide the life and lifestyle that she wanted so that she can be the person that she always wanted to be.
You know, I can see that, especially with the line. I don't think I underlined it in here, so I don't know exactly where it is. But she specifically said, this next time, I don't care if he's fat. I don't care if he's thin. I don't care if he's good looking. I don't care, you know, and I'm thinking the subtext of all of that. And when you hear this in, you know, girls nowadays, it's just kind of like, I just want to know how deep his wallet is.
Right.
She obviously didn't come out and say that, but like, that's what I'm reading it. And I'm reading right between the lines going, yeah, I know where you're going with this.
I see it. Yeah. I see it. Kathy Moran, she was misled by him by not being able to spend his money, and then she leaves him and calls him abusive. And that's kind of the rough thing too, is that one of the things that, like, I don't want to shame her for experiences she may have had, but at the same time, I do recognize the imbalance of one person having a television show and saying this about their ex versus somebody who doesn't have that same platform. Like, he doesn't have a way to defend or protect himself against anything that she said, because she not only had, at the time, she not only was on TV, but this was a very big show for TLC. So she would have had the support of the channel and the network as far as protecting her and her image in the assault that she would levy against this guy. So I'm not sure where he was, whether he did what she implied, because she never actually came out and said that he did anything. There's a lot of implications.
That's what I have a lot of that highlighted in here too. I'm like, the way she dances around it without coming out and saying it, like, one could look at it and say, okay, well, maybe she was just trying to be nice and she didn't want to throw the word abusive out there. So she's, you know, saying, I was exposed, I was vulnerable, I needed to regain my confidence, I was mistreated, I was misled. There's all these kind of, you know, workaround things. But the reality is, if something horrible had happened, it would be in the court documents. There
Right.
was
Right.
nothing in the court documents at all, even about mistreatment or, but like it
Right.
wasn't at all addressed. And that's where everything comes out. That's where you lay all
Mhm.
your cards on the table and you try to get as much out of the other person or get as much for your own side. Like it always gets dirty. And their separation to divorce was 2 years long. So it's not like, oh, we decided to just do this really quick and do it under the table and we just both agreed and we went two different ways. No, it was drawn out. And yet
Right.
there was
Right.
no mention at all in the court record. So like I look at, we have court records, we have Robin's words in her book. When we
Right.
know there's a
Right.
lot of other lies in this book. So again, same as you hate to second guess when somebody is implying something because God forbid there's so many women out there dealing with that and a lot of women who get second guessed when they shouldn't be.
Mhm.
And so
Absolutely.
because of that,
Absolutely.
I always pause when I get to this and I think, talk about it. But the reality is the writing seems to be on the wall for this in
Mhm.
terms of her, like he divorced her.
Right.
This is her way of saying, yeah, but,
Right. Right.
you know?
And the thing is, if anybody challenges on this, the point that I would make is this. You could say, and I could see a scenario because I could see in a universe where you say, look, this is what happened during the course of the marriage. I was treated a certain way, or he did this misdeed or that misdeed. And I didn't want to put it into a document, a court document, to let my kids know at some later time the possibility that my kids could maybe read this divorce decree and see what a horrible person that their parent was.
Mhm,
So to protect my children, I wanted to leave that out. I could see that scenario. I could totally see that. I'm
mhm,
not necessarily a big fan of it. I think you should put it in there, but
mhm,
I can see somebody doing that to protect their kids. The
mhm,
one challenge I would have to that argument would be the fact that you come back later and get on national TV on a
mhm,
television show and say that the very things that you're saying you want to protect them from, you're
mhm.
right there on TV saying it.
Yeah.
Then not only are you on TV saying it, you sit down and you write a book and you put it in the book how
Mhm,
this is what happened. So it's
mhm.
not that you're afraid or you're trying to protect somebody. So it kind of calls into question what it is you're actually doing. And
Yeah.
she goes up to, and the whole thing is that with the implication, you walk right up to the line where you're accusing him, but you don't accuse him, so that if he ever comes back and says that you slandered him or you
Mhm,
libeled him and he wants to try to get money out of you, you can always fall back on the I never said that. I never said any of that.
mhm.
That's not what I said. Those words never came out of my mouth. If that's what you think, hit dogs holler. you know, I didn't say any of that. So I can see the plausible deniability is built into the commentary. But what
Yeah.
did you think about the whole concept of the Shira? Like when she talks about I had Shira and she protected me from the evils, and when I would go out with guys and meet men, she would yell at me and scream at me and tell me
Yeah.
to stay single. What did you
I
think about that?
I feel like she read a self-help book
Mm,
and saw how people use this to protect themselves because this was going to be her narrative. Now that she was going to be on television, she was going to have to talk to the fact that she was previously married, that she had three kids, that she had was pregnant before she got married. Like there's so much dirt there that I feel like what Shira was really protecting was her image. It was a fake Shira that she created, and this is a
right,
narrative that she wrote based on what she's read other people do. I don't believe I just don't believe it. I
right,
just
right,
laughed out loud when I read it the first time because it just doesn't align with who Robin is. I
right,
just
right.
I could see if Mary said it. I could see that
Mm,
because Mary's more sensitive. Mary was like had a heart, like I'm going to create this persona to help me break out and talk to people, and I don't have a lot of friends, and I need to protect. I would have bought it
right,
if it would have been in Mary's chapter. I don't buy it in Robin's chapter. I really don't.
right.
I feel like she's been conniving from day one and manipulating from day one. And if we go back and believe other things that we're hearing outside of the book and show, in that it was her sister that was interested in Preston and he was interested in her, and then she decided to come in and change all of that. And she was like 4 or 5 years older than Preston too.
Right. Right.
She's, so she came in as like, I'll get this guy.
Right.
And she
Right.
did. Like, I just can't, I just don't buy, I'm sorry. I just don't buy it.
Well, you know, it's funny you said that, because on 2 points. The first point, with regard to Mary, there's
Mhm.
always a point that I felt with Robyn, because I'm going to go on record. First, well, I'll flip it. First point, I'm with you. I didn't buy it.
Yeah.
I didn't buy it at all. It was like, it was a cute story. This is something that, I thought it was something that she put into the book to try to relate to people that she perceives to be her fans. It's
Mm.
something that she like, this is what the fans would want me hear me say, and it'll give them encouragement to do the same for them. And this is what I would do if as I was in that situation. But when I'm listening to you say that, the thing with Mary actually kind of strikes me as something that I've always said about Robyn before, that she is a person who emulates and reflects the
Mhm.
people that she's around. Because there's
Mm.
been a few times where she's taken certain concepts or things that other people have said and she's incorporated it into her own story.
Mhm.
So Shira, especially the way, like you said, Mary grew up. She was a very shy young lady. She was very, to herself. Hell, the
Mhm.
fact that she had been in Christine's church for years, and Christine had no idea who she was
Mhm.
until she started dating Cody. Like, all of a sudden, you date somebody I'm interested in. Like, oh, that's your girlfriend? Wow, I never knew that person, even though she's been to my house. I had no idea who she was.
Mhm.
So I could see her. I could see this being her story.
Yeah.
And this is something that Robyn, sitting there talking to Mary, and the conversations that she had where they say, wow, that's really interesting. I like how you said, I like how you put that together. I'm going to take that for myself, and then she puts
Mhm.
that into the story and adopts that story. And
Mm.
the weird thing about it is that this might have been something that they both may have talked about and Mary experienced, but
Mhm.
somebody who experienced this, especially somebody in Mary's position, might be too embarrassed to say that this is the person that they had to create to
Yeah.
protect the weaker version of themselves. She might say, I was a shy person, but the idea that you're going to be proud of the fact that you were too shy to protect yourself
Yeah.
is something that you might not want to talk about. But
Mhm.
somebody who never experienced
Mhm.
that embarrassment and that shame, they have no problem with pretending, to be that type of person. So I think that's interesting. I hadn't considered that before until now, but yeah,
Mhm.
it's a good point.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting also that she said, when she talked about Shira, I invented an alter ego that became my protector. Her name was Shira. She represented my tougher, bolder side. And then the next sentence was, since no one would come to my rescue. And I just
Mm-hmm.
thought, so, like, does that talk to her relationship with Alice, or is she throwing Alice under the bus at this time? And where was her relationship with her siblings at this time? Because
Right.
they would have been older too. Like, maybe her and her sister never really got along after she stole Preston away. Like, that could have been the end of that between them. I don't know. But I just thought, well, that's an extreme sentence. Since no one would come to my rescue, I had to create Shira to have somebody by my side. And for somebody who claims to be so religious and on her
Mm-hmm.
knees in front of God, that this would be the ultimate time. This is a time that people of faith, when they feel broken down and lost and completely alone, is when they reach out and when they get
Right.
closer and they say, and during this time, my faith grew so much and I felt the presence of God and I prayed out and I could feel the comfort and all that. There's not a word of that in here for being somebody
Right.
who's like supposed to be super uber religious in her faith to the point of joining the AUB church with all the rules that included too. I mean, you have Christian plus LDS rules plus AUB rules,
Right.
and
Right.
and she needs Shira instead.
Right. Well, when you said, when she's being religious, she'd be down on her knees and like, oh, pause.
Yeah, I
Don't do
know.
that. Pause. But the whole
Mhm,
thing, yeah, because even with the idea of like because I was about to look it up. Let me just check something real quick because I have a feeling that this actually will correspond. Yep, the book corresponds with something that was popular at the time. And it
mm,
just occurred to me with the last sentence of what she wrote. If you complete the sentence all the way out,
mhm,
since no one would come to my rescue, I transformed part of myself into my own superhero,
mm,
right? And at the time, one of the big things that was going on in pop culture was actually the explosion of the Marvel movies, the superhero movies. That
mm.
whole genre started to take off and explode. So it's weird to me, like all of a sudden you start talking about you got superheroes and the only thing
Mhm.
she didn't say is I have Iron Man, I'm an Iron Woman suit, Iron Maiden suit
Right.
in my closet.
I
I
can
am the
shrink
Iron
down to the
Maiden.
size of an ant to disappear from all the evil people.
Right. And I will crush them under my heel of justice.
That's
So
right.
you have a lot of that. And again, I think it plays into that whole what was popular at the time, what were people kind of feeling on, what were people vibing with. So it was a way for her to be popular in
Mhm,
some of her presentation. And
mhm,
and like even with the whole concept of Shira, it was funny to me because, like I said, when you put together the timelines for when everything happened to where, like, okay, you had issues with Preston, you supposedly separated in 2007. Okay, fine, maybe you developed the She-Ra and the power, power of Grayskull at that point. But then in 2009, when your divorce is finalized, in a very few short amount of months,
mhm,
you start dating Cody
mhm,
and you find this new guy that you're interested in. And I think that might actually be a point where we can jump into her meeting Cody in church and how
mhm.
that whole thing went. Now, the way it was presented on the show, let's talk about that before we get into like what actually happened or the way they presented in the book. The way
Okay.
they presented on the show, how would they say? I was at a party and it was some of the people. She was getting a little funky groove on, cutting the rugs, and all of a sudden she looked across the room. She sees Cody, eyes locked. The magic happens. Mary comes over, starts dancing with her, invites Cody over. Cody comes over. He gets the ick factor. Yep, she got kids. Disgusting. And then he he somehow is big enough to look past her children
Mhm, mhm,
and those previous mistakes from her previous relationships.
mhm.
He looks past that, and
Yep.
he uses his benevolence to decide that he's going to start talking to her and dating her, and he gets the funky chicken on with her and
Mhm,
does the dance, and all of a sudden they fall in love, and then they pursue a relationship after that. That's how they
mhm,
present it on the show.
mhm.
Now, how did they present it in the book, Jenny?
Oh, very different. There were multiple times when Robin, who didn't have two nickels to rub together, found herself magically. I think it's 4 hours away, 4 or 4.5 hours to get from St. George to Lehigh. She mentions she gets divorced.
Right.
And after it's finalized, she decides to visit her cousin, who she hasn't seen
Mm,
in a very long time. This
right.
is a way of trying. That line was her way of explaining to everybody when later on they're like, well, how come we haven't ever seen this cousin ever again that you're so close with, that you kept visiting? And then now that we look back and we talk to the cousin, you hadn't talked to the cousin for 10 years before that. That's what that line was. That was her way of saying, and I hadn't seen her in a long time.
Right.
You
Right.
know, but it just so happened she lived in Lehigh where this man is getting a television show. So
Right.
I'm going to give her a call and I'm going to drive 4.5 hours, even though I've got three small kids at home, to visit this cousin I barely know.
Right.
Even though their family is based out of St. George, Utah. So she would have had other cousins and relatives and whatnot in the St. George, Utah area, or maybe another half hour away, or an hour, or 2,
Mm.
or 3. I mean,
Right.
to have to go, like, oh my goodness, I can cross 2 state lines in 4.5 hours. I can be in Canada in less than 4.5 hours from Ohio. I mean, I could get to, I mean, yes, there's so many places in 4.5 hours. I can be in Chicago. I can be in Niagara Falls. I can
Right.
be
Right.
I could be in New York at the Poconos. I mean, so she drives 4 hours. She gets there and just happens to visit her friend who goes to, shockingly, the same church that Cody does in Lehigh, and that was their first encounter. Now, the first encounter, according to her, is that she was sitting behind him, and I actually have to like back up for a second here, because I put this in a video at one point too, and somebody said, "Oh, I've been in that church, and I think the bathroom is in the front." It says in here she was sitting behind him, looking at his beautiful sandy hairs and the little crow's
Right.
feet by his eyes, and he was so charismatic and chatting away with people, and she was just captivated by him right from the beginning. All right. She said, so she gets up and she doesn't talk to him. She sees him. She gets embarrassed. They do lock eyes, according to her.
Mm.
I don't know if Cody remembers this or not. He doesn't write about it. I believe her. I believe that she made a point to lock eyes with this man because that was her intent of the trip to begin with, was to make her way into the family. They lock eyes. And I won't get into all this. So let me just touch on all the bullet points first before I go into the details of her lies. So they meet there in church. She manages to walk by him in the church too. Watch me as I go
Right.
by. She manages to do one of those, the walk bys, oh,
Right.
are you there? Yeah.
Because everybody knows that
Uh-huh.
women have their ways. This is the
Mhm.
way. The only thing that they didn't say she did was drop something on the ground. Like she just happened to get in front of them, like, oh no, I dropped my
Right,
pencil.
right, right.
Let me
Yes,
drop
that was
that
it.
3-point stance.
That was it. That was it. She looks at him again, of course, on the way back, and then, looks away. All right, that ends up kind of being the end of it. But then, amazingly, a month later, this cousin who she hadn't seen in forever, she drives another 4 hours to go up just to visit her on the weekend.
Mm.
4 hours. That's 8 hours of driving on a weekend when you've got 3 small kids. And I believe the second
Right.
time the kids were in tow as well. And later on, she mentions that the kids don't like driving in the car because she
Right.
claims later on, well, I decided to go up again with the kids. I was convinced they'd say no, but they said yes. So I took
Right.
them again. And she's like, because they don't like riding in the car. I didn't think they'd want to. Oh, they don't like riding in the car because you took them a month prior with you up there just to visit your cousin. Happens to run into Cody on the front lawn. So this is where
Right.
they really met the first time. She recognizes him instantly. And he gets out and he starts doing his usual acting and getting people to gather all around him. On that lawn, eventually he says to her, oh, so where's your husband here? And, she claims that she doesn't have one. And off he goes at the end. They make it seem like they barely talk to each other at all. But this was their first face-to-face meeting. But then a few weeks later, wouldn't you know, she finds herself back in Lehigh, Utah.
Right.
Just shocking. She probably hadn't been in Lehigh, Utah all her life, or like maybe 20 years ago. But she's back there again because there's a dance. And then so like the whole story was kind of taking little bits and leaving a bunch of stuff out and adding stuff and kind of putting the dance together with the first meeting at the cousin, and how it all worked out. So the show is a complete fabrication of what the book says. I don't even say what reality is because God only knows where the
Right.
truth lies in all of this. But according to the book, it's at that dance, which confuses me too, because she was supposed to escort her brother and her sister. I'm going to do so many sidetracks because there's so many lies in this chapter. It's unreal. Her mom said well, her mom said that she had to get her scent out there. Oh, Alice, she's a piece of work, this Alice, I'm telling you. So she says, you have to get your scent out there. So go to this dance. So obviously, Alice also knew about Cody at the church and everything. So she's like, go, 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 go. Robin's like, no, I'm not going to go. I can't do that. People, I'm too embarrassed to show my face, according to Robin in the book. And she went because the mom said, oh, your brother and sister need a social outlet. They need an escort.
Right, right.
But this is where I get confused. And this is where I also don't know the whole family structure of Robin. Because later on at the dance, Cody is talking with her sister about being in polygamy, about
Right.
her being in a marriage. And I'm like, well, wait. If her sister is married already, why did she need an escort to the dance? That makes no sense to me. Did you understand that
Well,
at all?
the only way that would make sense to me is if for some reason the family was pressed about her going down to this dance or whatever, this event,
Mhm.
and she needed an escort because she was married. She can't go by herself because then
Okay.
she's a married woman who's in
Going to
a
a
social
singles dance.
situation or setting. That's the only way it makes sense. But it doesn't make sense that a husband, especially in these types of trad houses or
Mhm.
trad structure houses, or, traditional structure families, where they would have somebody, go who's married, potentially with children, or should be getting ready to have children in these
Mhm.
types of families because the kids are so important that
Mhm.
they would send their wife down to a dance without the husband going.
Right.
You know what I mean? To a different, like it's a different church. So I don't like a
Yeah.
lot of it doesn't make sense. And
Yeah.
just I've always held that it makes more sense to me that Robin and Cody, Robin heard about like I might even believe that, she did the whole like looking over the shoulder, put, putting a scent out there, put a button ad, as what he used to say that back in the day with dogs or whatever. That's how they put their scent out there.
That's
So it's
right.
weird that that's like what they
He
would
had to
say.
spray the area.
Right, right. Like, let everybody know they open for business.
That's right.
So she walk into the bathroom, letting Cody know she open for business.
Mhm.
It makes sense to me that might have happened, but Cody had a conversation with her and sparked some interest in her. And
Mhm.
then knowing that there was an interest, they started this whole like started down this path where they started this relationship. And
Mhm.
then from there, maybe some things. Okay, you need to meet Mary. Okay, from
Mhm.
there, once we get Mary on board, we have her. She can convince the other ones because
Yes.
what I found to be consistent with so many of these types of alternative lifestyle relationships, whether it's polygamy, swinging, whatever the case may be, one of the key things that I've seen is that they always try to get the partner to do
Mhm.
most of the selling and the talking. They
Mhm.
always try to, like if it's a man with a wife or a man with a girlfriend, and he's trying to get other people pulled into that relationship, he always sends his wife out to go, to scour. You point them out. I want that one. And the wife goes over and has the conversation
Mhm.
and starts to encourage in that. So if she tells Robin, be nice to Mary, make friends with Mary, and we get Mary on our side, then it'll be easier for us to convince the other wives. Because once we get one, then we'll go after Janelle. And then once we
Mhm.
get Janelle, Christine, even if she does disagree, she'll be outvoted. And then
Mhm.
we'll have Christine, you know.
Mhm.
But our sarcasm for fun in the house. James and Legally Blonde at Robin. Mine was called the bend and snap.
All
Smash
right.
that like
And
the
it's
bend and snap. That move, that Robin move was called the
That's
bend and
right. The
snap.
bend and
Okay,
snap.
okay.
That's right. That was cloned in Legally Blonde. Yes.
Sarcasm, but thank you, sarcasm. Appreciate you. 999 super
Yeah.
chat. But yeah, that really struck me. So yeah, that does make sense. But like you said, with the driving, anybody who has children, especially young children, who's
Mhm.
ever dealt with young children, putting a
Mhm.
child in a car for 3.5 hours, four
Put him in
hours
for
at a
one.
time. No, that's nothing that you like. Yeah, I'm gonna do this twice a month. Hell with
Yeah.
that. They would
Yeah.
have to be giving out gold coins. There'd have to be a rainbow at the end of the rainbow. I have to have a pot of gold
Mhm.
waiting for me to endure that. And I'd
Mhm.
probably spend most of that money on therapy
Yeah.
because them kids would drive you absolutely insane.
Mhm.
3 hours,
Mhm.
and Robin's kids was kind of bad. Like
Ye
I don't say they were bad, but they were active children.
They were sassy.
Yeah, they were active children. So, locking me out the car. Like that kids were a piece of work. So I couldn't even imagine that would have been disastrous, you know,
I just Googled it, 276 miles, 4 hours from
4 hours.
Lehigh to St. George. 4 hours.
Yeah, nah,
Yeah.
nah.
No,
Nobody's
the
doing that
only
on
way
mistake.
you would do that is for a man. You would
Uh,
never make your kids sit in a car that long to visit a cousin you barely know and you haven't seen of in a long time. No.
right,
Mm-mm.
right.
No way.
Especially I think the whole point of having polygamy was that you like the big family. So you would have brothers and sisters that live closer to you
Right.
than driving all the way down there for a cousin. I mean,
Mhm.
you got plenty of brothers and sisters that you can go visit at that
Mhm.
point. Like
Mhm.
bump that. Like that's I don't know. And to be honest with you, it would have to be love at first sight. Like I'd have to be at love, love, love.
Mhm.
Just get in a car drive 4 hours. I'd have to be sure. I have to know. 4
Mhm.
hours. Maybe we could talk on the phone or something.
Mhm.
4 hours? No.
It does make sense, James, as you said that the only thing that really makes sense in this whole story is that there is a part being left out that Cody and Robyn at some point met and spoke and talked and fell in love, maybe instantly, whatever, but decided, okay, now we have to go through the proper channels so that we have our story straight because I've got this television show and it's not going to look right. And you have to do it you have to meet Mary and everything to go along with it because it just, it, all right, let me point this out. The lies just don't add up, basically. So
Mhm.
near the very end of her thing, she's talking about as Cody drove off at the end. So this is after the dance. All right. No, not after the dance. This is the time she had seen him at church. And then she met him. So here are the things she said about him. This is just Robyn's words about running in and meeting Cody. So, first of all, she said, I am not exaggerating when I say I felt as though I had been shot through with a bolt of lightning. When this
Right.
happened, I was stunned. I was also embarrassed and I looked down to my feet. Then she goes on to say she was immediately furious that she had that kind of response to a stranger. I was determined that no one should break through my hard exterior and play with my emotions. I quickly repaired the crack that had appeared in the armor. Okay. Later on, the same man, this is a month later, she goes back. She sees him on the front lawn. That same man I locked eyes with in church drove up in this white convertible. It was like a party exploded out of that car. He was so dynamic, so full of energy. Reba introduced me, and I fought to suppress the memory of that electric sensation that I'd felt in the church a month earlier. She was screaming at me from inside my head, warning me to not even look at Cody. It was difficult to ignore him. He was so animated, so loud, but I did. Now we get to it's time for her to leave. She says, I thought nothing of it as I drove off. I imagined that somewhere down the line I might become friends with Mary, but that was as far as my thinking went concerning the Browns. Just like, you can't make this up. I'm like, did you
Right.
not know what you wrote one page before in the same book? I mean,
She
talk about
forgot.
not being able to keep your story straight.
Yeah.
This is
Right, right.
crazy. These electric impulses and all this stuff. And after all of that, she thought nothing of it and thought, well, I might become a friend of Mary. But other than that, that was as far as my thinking went concerning the Browns. That's when you just want to take the book and throw it into the fire and go, okay,
Right. You're
come
so full of
on.
crap. Well, what's
Yes.
amazing to me is like one of the one of the things when she talked about Shira, and this is what I meant, like putting it together with Shira and the defender of the wallet and all that kind of stuff. Defender of the bouncer of the budget. When she talks about Cody pulling up and a party exploding out of the car, what did she say? He pulled up in a sports car, that luxury sports car that he had, the Lexus convertible that he owned. That's the car that he pulled up with. That car that she was so sad to see go because she had so many good memories. That's the car that she might have saw him pull up. For some people, even though many of us may look at that and be like, "Oh, it's just a Lexus," it is what it is. It's not, it's not crazy. But for some people, in some circumstances and situations, that would have been the equivalent of him pulling up in a Ferrari or pulling up in a Lamborghini and parking on the grass and coming out and jumping around and how. Yeah, he's so interesting. He's amazing because he's meeting the needs that you have. And this is kind of where, the materialism comes in, at least. And that's just how, maybe it's the way I'm reading it. Maybe it's just the way I'm looking at it. But it's many weird things that are just like red flags for me when I would hear something like that.
Yeah. Well, and the fact that she made a point to put that in there. Like that just shows that's where her mind went right away. Like first I saw the car before I even saw the man. I saw the car. That's what she led with. So you know exactly what she was thinking. So you're spot on, James. Spot on.
Yeah, right. First I look at a purse,
Yeah.
But and this is also a point, Blythe Smith, Bill Smythe. With 13 kids in a sports car. And it's funny to me that one of the things that she always said, because later on we'll talk about it with her, coming over to the house for a cookout or whatever. She talked about how great he got along with all his kids, and he had 4 wives, and it was so amazing. What a family man that he was. Sports car, 2-seater sports car. Well, technically, I guess it's a 4-seater, but really is 2 adults, 2 children in the back, maybe some furniture, not furniture, suitcases, small luggage.
Yeah.
You could fit in the back of that car.
It's meant for the golf clubs.
Right. It's not a family car at all. Like this is for a normal family, like, 1 wife, 2 kids, and a pet. You couldn't fit those into that car. Especially
and barely that, James. Barely that, because who gets a 2-door car anymore these days? If you have a family, you have 4 doors for sure.
Right.
Once you have 1 kid, you need 4 doors. I had 2 doors on my first car when my baby was born. It was not long before we traded in and got a 4-door car because it is so difficult. So the most impractical car.
And if you do have a 4-door car or a 2-door car, that's your toy. Like you have enough money where if you have a 2-door car or you have a motorcycle, those are toys. Those are no longer vehicles. Like you might drive it when you by yourself, you going to work or you going out for fun, or maybe you going on a date, but you would never, ever put your child in the back of that car and think that's like the family car, because it'll drive you insane.
No.
So that just wouldn't, with 13 kids already, 4 wives, like you would think that this guy will pull up in a school bus. That would make more sense to me for him to have a school bus or some kind of van, like active van, where he could drive people around, because you want your family together. Yeah. But that's not what she said. Then they started talking about like the Shira supposed to be protecting her from having this cracked heart, or him breaking through the walls, but he was chiseling his way through because he's attractive and because he seems exciting. This was enough for you to decide that all of a sudden you're ready to turn your back on your chaste positioning where you're going to protect yourself and defend yourself. Now I get it. Like if you're attracted to somebody, it is what it is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I always say that, like, well, I'm not ready to date. If she's attracted to you, she'll find a way.
Yep.
I think I'm over it,
Yep.
But
and that's probably why she jumped on it right away too, right? Because she said, I don't care about money. I don't care what they look like. I don't care if they're fat, if they're thin, if they're this, if they're that. Oh, but if I'm semi really attracted to him and he pulls up in this car, well, now my claws are going in and I'm not letting go.
Right. That, this is kind of that humble brag that Cody does, that it's easy to say, I don't care about, like, if I sat there, oh, I don't care what a woman looks like. I don't care what she looks like. It's a person on the inside. But then you look at, you know, you look at the person's wife and they're hot as hell. Like, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? For you to pretend like you don't care.
Right. Yeah. Yeah,
It's not about
the
money.
package just came along with it. She's really
Right.
great
She's
on the inside.
a wonderful person, just looks
Yeah.
amazing too. You
Yeah.
know, I don't care about money and materialism. And then you find out they have a trust fund that's worth $100 million. Like,
Yeah. Right.
I guess you wouldn't care about money.
Right.
So,
I wouldn't either if I had that.
right, exactly. You're in that position.
Yeah.
You don't have to care about money, but I do. So,
Exactly.
but so we talked about Shira, and she talks about the importance of like her needing to have a good man, and by good man, one of the things that struck me before, because I couldn't recall. I know it was like in the first time we met Robyn. I believe it was then she had talked about when I decided I was going to pick a man, I wanted somebody who was going to be able to take care of my kids and be there and give me the things I want for my kids. So that in itself kind of led me to, when I first was watching the show before I read the book, that was my first clue that, you know, Cody wasn't just somebody who was going to come along and bring her into a family, but Cody was somebody who opened the door and gave her the opportunity where she was going to be able to take care of her children. And he was the pathway for that, which is why I think too, she didn't necessarily press to become the first wife or become the legal wife initially, because she didn't, at the time, they didn't know how well this show was going to do. You know, so you wouldn't necessarily want to be tied to a man in this family, because if she would have tied herself to this man and these 13 children, these 3 other women, legally, she would be legally bound, and it'd be harder for her to sever that relationship. The spiritual stuff, she get on TV, she becomes famous, she's sought after, and people are trying to, you know, opportunities are abound, and she no longer wants to be part of the Brown family. That spiritual stuff, she can be like, all right, see you guys later, I'm out. You know,
There's a thought that I didn't have before until you were talking about that, but think of it from this regard. You know, apparently she had been on an interview in the past and she wanted to write a book. She wanted to get on Oprah. She went, you know, so she had these pie in the sky ideas. So she sees this man with a television show and he's not half bad looking. Maybe she's not really even attracted to him, but she's like, okay, you know, I could sleep with that. That's all right. You know, like I was willing to do much worse to get the money and things taken care of. So with this show and that, her idea was probably also, I can see not only a best-selling book, of course, her best-selling book ended up being with 4 other people in addition to her. Like she wanted to do a best-selling book. I am sure that she has visions when she started off with this of a social media empire where she would have hundreds of thousands, if not 1 million followers. She could do product placements and I like this, and that she would get endorsements and just all this stuff that came along with it. And she then, as the season started going on, so interesting. This is just a twist for you. Like, what if that was her whole plan and the empire came crumbling down because nobody liked her from the beginning? And as much as she tried, it just became worse. Like she just couldn't be transparent. She couldn't be vulnerable. She wasn't relatable and nobody liked her. So there's no way, like her views and her subscribers and all that compared to everybody else, like you couldn't even compare. They were in completely different ballparks. This dream of becoming a millionaire based on product endorsements and social media and all this stuff just fell flat. So she had no choice but to be Alice and to be like, okay, don't leave me. I'm going to be your best customer. Because I need you to keep the gravy train going. Like she might have thought, you know, I can dip out if I want to. But by the time she married him was probably the point, because it was pretty early on, she realized, oh, wait, yeah, I'm not going to be able to financially capitalize on this on my own. So I'm going to have to ride the coattails of Cody. So let me hitch my wagon to his, marry him so that I can ride that out as long as possible, because he's going to be, there's no show without him.
Right. Well, I mean, and I think that's That's kind of the thing too, because when you look at it, by the time they got to, uh, they were in Vegas, they purchased the homes, and she was about to marry Cody. That's around the same time that they pulled all their stuff off of, because they used to be on Twitter and all that, and
Mm.
do social media real heavy, but they
Mhm.
were getting so much negative, so many negative posts and so much negative information that before she had married Cody, she had already closed out her Twitter
Mhm.
account, closed her
Mhm.
Twitter account down. And
Mhm.
even from the beginning of the show, it's funny you say that because I've said that before. Like, well, even from the beginning of the show, she probably thought, looking at it, both her and Cody, because I still hold to this day that in Cody and in Robyn's minds, they were going to be the couple
Mm.
because they thought that they were the best looking, best
Mhm.
articulable, most attractive folks who were going to pull everybody in and everybody was going to identify with them. And here this, handsome, exciting guy is running around with this new hot young diesel gene model.
Mhm.
And she's amazing and she's so young and special.
Mhm.
And they were supposed to be the flagships of the show, like the flagship characters of the show. The problem they had was that they misread the damn room. Your
Mhm.
audience was not going to be people who are trying to get into a poly relationship at 20
Mhm.
years old and they could identify with being somebody like Robyn who's trying to take a man away from somebody's wife. But
Mhm.
a lot of the audience members of the show, the fan base of the show, were people who were closer to the age of the OG3.
Mhm.
One, two, were in long relationships themselves, or just left a long term relationship,
Mhm.
and they could identify more with the OG3 than they could with the young lady who came in and took the man from the young upstart who shows up and is exciting, and the new booty show up and want to take take it away from the OG3, from the
Mhm.
original wives, the original wife
Mhm.
club.
Mhm.
So it's just
Mhm.
a misread all the way around. And
As was my sister wife's closet. I think she
right,
was still in that mindset that she thought, if we make it, they will come, as opposed to if you build it, they will come.
right,
Like, just because we are who we are, like, I'm just going to, we're going to become millionaires now because people will spend this kind of money for junk because
mm,
we're the Browns.
right,
And they didn't, largely because she was spearheading the thing. She was so unlikable.
right,
That you
right,
really didn't have a desire. Like, there's almost part of you, if Janelle started selling Strive by Janelle necklaces and they were as cheap as those, or they look like you could get them at Claire's, I'd still buy one. I'll
right,
wear it
right,
for my lives. I won't wear it around society, but I'd wear it for my lives and I would support Janelle and, like,
right,
but it's Robyn. So she really
right.
misread the audience through that whole journey of, we need to do this. Yeah, that was the whole time I kept thinking, like, who does she think she is? That,
This is
well,
never gonna work.
just wait until we go live. Just wait. The orders are gonna come flooding in. That was the greatest episode.
Right,
When it
they're
was like
coming in.
ding, ding,
And even Cody sitting there
ding.
like, ooh, yeah, ooh. They're gonna start selling like hotcakes. But I think
Yeah.
that's also part of the reason why, like, even trying to capitalize off of the other wives, I think that's why it was so important for them to pull the other wives into the business.
Oh
It was
yeah.
so critical. If you remember, there was a long period of time where she was
Mhm.
constantly battling with the other wives. I
Mhm.
need you to be a part of the business. And Mary was constantly saying, I want to do it. But Mary's numbers were very close. Like, she was always above Robyn and Cody. Robyn
Mhm.
and Cody pretty much, out of the five characters, the two of them always would alternate between the bottom. And
Yeah.
then Mary was kind of stuck in the middle. But she
Yeah.
wasn't popular enough for
Mhm.
Robyn to want to include her in the business. Instead, she wanted to make sure Christine and or Janelle
Mhm.
were part of the business and become faces of the business so that she could hopefully sell this stuff and capitalize off of the popularity of the show.
Yeah.
But it was overpriced junk. Right?
Yeah.
And so it just never sold.
Yeah. Yeah. She totally she misread the room on that. And I think in addition to that, she started realizing how much work was going into it, and
Mm-hmm.
she didn't like to work.
Right,
So
right.
It
said,
really
do
came
what?
down to, wait, I need to farm this out like I do the work at my house. I need to find
Right.
somebody else to take this on.
I don't like cleaning my house, let alone a website. Like,
Mhm,
it's ridiculous. Big shout
mhm.
out to Teresa Skinner in the
Thanks,
house.
Teresa Skinner.
1999 super sticker. Thank you so much,
Yay.
Teresa.
Thanks, Teresa.
Appreciate you. Appreciate you. But yeah, it's just like I said, it's just insanity that they would do that. And then it plays again, a lot of this plays into the what the audience saw. And part of the reason why I think the audience was so disjointed. You come in, you disrupted a whole family. You
Mhm,
basically disintegrated the family by your presence. And the way they and one of the like as we'll get into in a little bit, the way they presented the whole idea of Robyn's introduction to the family and the excitement that the family had and how they is completely contradictory to everything that we know about the presentation that the family had as far as being introduced to Robyn, when they were introduced to Robyn, how they felt about Robyn when Robyn was introduced is completely different. Like it's just
mhm,
a different story altogether. But
mhm.
what did you think of Cody's description of like he meets this young lady at the party. He gets his little funky time on with her, and then him and Mary they stand outside in front of the church. They're talking and they're having this great conversation, and he's conversating with the cousin, and he's trying to play it real low key. He's trying to stay in the cut and in the position. He doesn't want to be too aggressive with this young lady, so he's just kind of talking to her cousin or her sister
Sister.
about polygamy and this, that, and other. And then he goes home with Mary and they have this whole conversation. He lets them go. He goes home with Mary and they stay up 2 more hours having
Mm.
conversations about meeting this angelic woman on the steps and how beautiful she is and how wonderful she is. What do you think about that whole presentation?
That was all classic Cody manipulation right there. He gets out and he claims in the book he didn't want to be inappropriate. He had to hold himself back from flirting with her after
Mm,
that dance and contain himself in that moment. So you know that he was just lusting after her at that moment, but he wasn't allowed to. So he had
right,
to again go through the channel of Mary. So he keeps Mary up all night. Poor
right,
Mary.
right,
And has a way of talking to Mary. And I think Mary is easily manipulated, had a way of talking to her to just say, "Oh gosh, what do you think about her being your sister? Do you think I could just see how it goes right now? Do you think that she
right,
would be a great sister to you?" It seemed like the two of you were getting along great. I think
right,
that I mean you two were so cute together. You'd be like best buds. You'd be closer than Christine and Janelle are.
right,
Like you just kind of went down that road, and Mary just got swayed into the whole thing and thought, yes, I need a buddy too. Christine and Janelle are starting to buddy up now. And it used to be Christine and me, but no longer. Now it's Christine and Janelle. So I need my buddy too. And she just kind of thought, yeah, I want a friend. I want a friend. I'll do that too. She really didn't think through it because you realize even before they got married, they were in counseling over it. They were, like she
right,
regretted it. But in that moment, I think that she just kind of went along with it. And he probably empowered her to say, Mary, the fact that you were talking to her so much, like I never even like considered it. I just think that you're so intuitive. Like I can just see the words that he could
right,
use to get Mary to be convinced it was her idea and she's pushing for it and she thinks it's a great idea. And
right.
so, and then that's all he needed to go with it. So that's what I took of that, the whole conversation and leading up to the conversation with them that evening in bed, because after that one conversation, they like dove into it. That was it. That
Right.
was the beginning of the relationship.
Well, let's give a shout out to Tanya Johnson with the $5 super chat. So happy I'm able to watch you two today. We're happy you're able to watch us too.
Hi, Tanya.
You two speak for so many of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's interesting. Thank you so much, Tanya. I appreciate that. It's interesting you say that about Mary because I think that there is um a point where you can make that observation that if you're sitting there and just as a subtle way for you to be able to manipulate somebody, like if
Mhm.
he's sitting there And one of the powers that he has is that Mary is no stranger to Cody. He knows Mary. He intimately knows Mary. So again, if he can get Mary on his side to introduce this young lady to the rest of the family, then he's already halfway there. So you say things like you said, you say things like, oh, you guys were really in tune with each other. And for somebody who is super shy, somebody who is super reserved, you found somebody who naturally, I've never seen you talk to somebody as easy as you talk to her. I've never seen you just come right out and be able to click with that person, and the conversation never stopped, never paused. You guys just seem to be on the same level on so many different ways. You guys were just hit right there. And you can convince a shy person who has never experienced that type of relationship that they finally found somebody who is their match, somebody who they've been like they're just in tune with. And for somebody who's never experienced that, to feel that with somebody, especially somebody who they may look at and is like, this person is super cool. This person is everything I want to be. They're outgoing. They're attractive. A lot of people are interested in them. And this is who I want to be. And you do those things to them. That would be a way that you can get a lot closer to being able to convince her that this was her idea. And that's one of the things that I've always said. Like, if you really want to trick somebody, you offer something foolish or crazy, and then you make them think it's their idea. So if it does blow up, like, you're the one that did it. I didn't do it. I didn't want to do it. It wasn't on me. Remember, I had the ick factor. I didn't want to talk to her. You gave her to me, But go ahead and say so. This was a hard piece. Lane Howe. What's up, Lane? How you doing? The fact that she stopped Mary from finishing school for that, or made her drive hours to get to the fair when Mary was busy, was insane. This is talking about when the whole sister wife's closet thing. Mary came to her like, I want to go back to school so I can fulfill my dreams. And Robyn said, well, why are you going to school? You could do sister wives with me.
That's right. You're supposed to be my right-hand man. You're supposed to be my slave labor. What are you talking about? Go to school.
Remember, we're connected, remember?
That's right.
And that's another thing that I had said. So I don't know if I had said it in this particular live, but one of the things I had said is that, Cody knowing her, and if he did meet, and this is just my suspicion, I can't prove it either way, but if he did meet Robyn before, and he had a conversation with her, and he encouraged her to get to know Mary because she would be a way in, and she'll be a way that he could, make these connections. He says to gives Robyn some clues. These are some of the things that she's interested in. These are her likes and these are her dislikes. Like some folks do this with like friends or family that you want your partner to like, or you want your friends or family to like your partner. You may say, look, man, don't go there and say nothing about this. You into this? I know you love it, but don't bring it up because this person don't want to hear about it. You got Crazy Sam. He want to talk about politics all the time. Y'all totally disagree. If he start talking politics, you get off politics because you guys are going to be in the parking lot fist fighting. So you stay away from that, and you give them the clues so that way they're likable and they're more amenable. And I can see that conversation happening with Cody. So one of the things that struck me was on 71. What's this? On 71, the fifth paragraph where he says, when I got to church, because this is like he said he sat up all night after the party. He sat there, talked to Mary. Mary, I think I'm in love with her. She's amazing. What are you thinking? They're both excited. She's incredible. And he said that he left the room and he fell upon his knees and he prayed, oh Lord, please give me the strength to get it. And the next day, he talks about how he went to church to try, because obviously he saw her at the function and he's thinking that she's going to be at the service the next day. So he's trying to, re-up. He's trying to reconnect. He said, when I got to church in the morning, Robyn was nowhere to be found. I was crestfallen. I was certain that she was as interested in me as I was in her. It seemed impossible to me that she wouldn't have attended my congregation in the hopes of seeing me again. Wow. My
Yeah.
man is serious.
He thinks a lot of himself.
He's like, I thought for sure she was in love. I mean, I only got 3 wives and 13 children.
Right.
Like, like most people would have been like, 3
One better
kids,
than
whoa.
that. The next paragraph, he goes on to say, if I had known Robyn wasn't going to be at church the next day, I would have never been a gentleman.
Right.
And ended our conversation the previous evening.
I
I would
would've
have
held
never
her.
been a gentleman. He used
Right.
those words when he was writing it down. Like, oh, I would have just gone in and yeah. As
I'll
opposed to
charge
just
for
saying,
it.
oh, I would have made a point to say, are you going to church? And when can we see each other again? No, he's like, I would have not been a gentleman. I can't believe I was a gentleman.
I can't. Well, you know what that is? Because when I first read that, the thing that struck me was I wouldn't have been a gentleman. In other words, I never would have taken her feelings or anything else into consideration. I just would have went after what I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
But I was trying to be nice, and I tried to let her go home, try to be respectful. But next, I went again, and even worse than that, I went against my original instinct. My instinct is to be an asshole. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's what I hear.
Yeah.
Like, that's my instinct. And I went against that.
Yeah.
But I know now.
Never again. Never again.
Part of my French. But that's just what I heard. Like, normally,
yep.
I don't give a damn what they think. But I tried to do something different.
Mary wasn't at church on that Sunday, so I found that interesting. There's no story behind it, but didn't he text her and she asked, is she there? And he said no.
Well, she might have, because I think they do like the Muslim thing where they're separate. Like the men don't sit, but that doesn't make sense either if what's name was behind them, like sitting directly behind them.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure exactly how that plays out. If anybody in the chat knows, like if you guys attend these type of churches, are they separate? Do they sit separately or do they sit together? Because that is a point that, where the hell is she? Like, that's a weird thing too, that you would text your wife, hey, have you seen her?
Yeah. During church, Mary texted me to ask if I'd seen Robyn. I told her I hadn't. Mary was as disappointed as I was. I thought Mary was at home. I thought Mary didn't go. But there's no explaining why. That's what confused me. That's how I read it, is that she wasn't even there. And she's just like, how'd it go? Did she stay home so that he could just have alone time without Mary being there? And then it didn't work out.
Which is a huge no-no.
I know.
A huge no-no, because you're not supposed to be. And I'm not part of the faith, so it doesn't bother me none. I'm just saying that according to the rules, at least to my understanding, you're never supposed to be alone with somebody that you're not courting. And by courting, you have permission not only of the parents, but you have permission of the church to expand your family and start talking to this person. It's not something where you can just, I find her interesting. Let me go over there and find out what she's talking about. Like, you just can't do that. Like,
he did the same thing with Janelle too. Took Janelle out for lunch, picked her up from work, and just the two of them went out when he was married to Mary during that time. While he was interested in, it would have been a no-no just to do it with another woman, but to do it with Janelle and to want to spend this time with Robyn, knowing that he had intentions of wanting them to join him in his marriage, is just him admitting that he's a pig and he doesn't listen to the rules if he doesn't want to.
Right. All of its suggestions. According to Morticia, Morticia, that's a cool pig. They have a priesthood meeting and the sisters have a meeting, and then there is a service where they all attend. Okay, thank you so much. That's instructive. So I did not know that. You told me something tonight. You told me something.
I didn't know that either. Thanks, Morticia.
Yeah, that's awesome. So and there's a point where I also want to talk to where there is something that we have to mention. You when he was first on the show, he presented it as, oh, when I first met Chris, because I have to balance it out because I told this horrible story about Christine. So now I'm gonna tell a horrible story about the one that I prefer, and everybody knows I prefer. When I first met Robyn, I had the ick factor. I couldn't. She had kids. She was a divorcee. She had the cooties, right? But at the same time, he's following this woman all over the place. He shows up to the cousin's house. You know what I mean? Like, this dude, like, if I didn't know better and things didn't work out the way they did, I'd have told her to get a restraining order on my dude. Because he just keep popping up in places where you at. It started to get, for me, it started to get a little uncomfortable. Like, every time she turned around, he's right there. Hey, how you doing? What you up to? Like, relax, slow down, Chief. Why don't you go sit over there?
To speak to what you just said before in terms of the whole ick factor and she's got kids and all that. Basically, he came right out and said, this woman has baggage. She's got kids, which is like the worst thing that you can say about a woman. I don't know about dating her. She's got baggage. And he thought that was okay to throw out on national television. It shows you how unaware this man is.
Like, why would that be a problem? What?
Well, that's no worse than what I said about Christine.
Right.
We're all even now. I can say horrible things about everybody.
Right. You guys are mad about that too? Come on.
That's right.
But
equal opportunity creep.
Right. I'm a jerk to everybody. Like, don't you see it? It's okay because I'm mean to everyone.
Just wait. You'll find out later that I hadn't slept in Mary's bedroom in 15 years.
Right. And that's even worse to me. Like, he's sitting there and these little details for me is what makes this whole situation kind of worse. Because not only did you sit there excitedly talk to Mary about Robyn, but we also have to keep in mind that at this time, Cody wasn't even engaged in an intimate level, having an intimate relationship with Mary. And you're having full-on conversations about how you're obsessed and excited about having relations with this other woman. You know, that and the fact that he would do that is just extremely callous to me. Like, it's very cold. It's a cold thing to do.
Yeah.
You know. But so Cody excitedly goes down and he has a whole conversation after he talks to Mary. Where is she at? I can't find her. And he runs the services over. He runs over to Reba, the cousin that, you know, Robyn has been newly reunited with because she's been driving 3-4 hours to come see because it's so important. And apparently they must be turning it up at church. They kicking it off.
Yeah.
Have the band is out of control. So he runs over to her and talks to her about the cousin and, you know, expresses interest in the cousin. And to me, this is what pretty much wrapped it all up for me. When they said the cousin told Robyn to get down, you know, we gotta have this, and I want to talk to her. And let me find it because it's in
Is that 72?
Yes, 72. Oh, okay, here it is. Robyn says, after my cousin talked to Cody and Mary, she called me and told me I needed to get down to Lehigh immediately. This was crazy. Since Lehigh is 300 miles from where I lived, like, now all of a sudden it's insane because Cody is showing some interest. Now it's crazy that the cousin is calling her. I can't believe you would do this. I got kids. Why would I come down there?
Kidding? Yeah, she goes on to say, I told her she was out of her mind.
Right.
But you've been here 3 times in the last 6 weeks.
Yeah, right. You've been down here throwing your behind up every chance you got. Now all of a sudden somebody throws some interest at you. Now it's a ridiculous notion that you would come down there. And she said, I have zero intention of coming down and falling in line with her little plan. Now all of a sudden it's Reba's little plan. Robyn, Reba said, this is a good family. They're very interested in you. There are a lot of positive things happening here. Let's stop right there. There are a lot of positive things happening here. What do we know that was going on at the time that a lot of positive things were happening there? What do we know? What we know is that they had a show. They had a show coming down. They were about to start filming. They were in negotiations to start filming this dang on show. That's what they know. And some people say, but James, if that's something that the family know, how would everybody else know? Because if you have somebody who is on television or they're going to be, hell, I remember back in the day, I'm about to show how old I am. I remember back in the day when they would have the news cameras out, and I went to high school in Center City, right? In the center city of my town. If somebody was out and they were behind, they doing the news report, and they get behind them and start waving and stuff, man, you call everybody, I'm about to be on 6 o'clock news. Tune in. You gonna see me when they do the news report on like the eight bodies they found in the Schuylkill. I'll be there waving like a fool, right? You call everybody you know. If you got a TV show back in 2008, 2009, you were damn near famous.
Yeah.
Like real talk. You were damn near famous in 2009 if you had a TV show. They got a TV show in this small community. They were going to talk about polygamy, which is something that everybody kept secret. And the show had to be approved by the church. It had to be sponsored, approved by the church in order for them to participate and stay within the church. So they were okay with it. So yeah, this would have been something that would have been kicked around and a lot of people would have known about it. So much so, it makes sense for somebody to drive, just going back to something we were talking about earlier, it makes sense that they knew about it before, and it's somebody, not necessarily saying Robyn, but somebody would drive 4 hours to get down there. Just saying.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's find interesting because the first time I read this, I didn't catch that line with her little plan. Because the whole time we kept saying this whole thing's a plan. It's obvious that she has this all this intention in there. So those two little hints there, she's saying, oh, she had a little plan. And she's saying she told me a lot of that she specifically said they have a show coming out. Right. And so Robyn's trying to figure out, how do I say this in a way that I don't say it? I'll just say a lot of positive things are happening. Yeah.
Right. But a smart person would have just not said anything.
Right. 100%. 100%. Yeah. I had zero intention of coming down and falling in line with her little plan. Oh, the lies.
Yeah, and it like almost to the point of, because this is the part where, like, I've done public speaking and presentations and things. And one of the things that I've always found and always held to be 100% true is that the audience members that you're talking to, nine times out of 10, almost 10 times out of 10, I'm like 9.999% of the times, they are not dumb, and they know, they can tell when you're being genuine. If you're being serious and you're sincere, most of the time they are able to pick up on that type of information. When you present yourself as this innocent, naive person who just happened to come down, I just happened to make my way, 300 miles, 3 or 4 weekends to come down to church. And I just so happened to meet a guy who's going to be on TV with his family. And I had no idea. Like, it just doesn't ring true to a lot of the audience members. And that's part of the reason why so many people, I think, had a problem with her from the beginning, because so much of her story just doesn't make sense. And it doesn't make sense to the point. It's not just the fact that you're lying to me. I can handle people lying to me, but don't call me an idiot while you're doing it. Yeah. And I think that's the part that really stuck with a lot of folks, like, because they feel like you're just insulting their intelligence.
Yeah. I feel before that section, when Cody was finishing up his chapter 2, I felt like this was actually the first crack of Mary realizing what she agreed to the night before.
Hmm.
Like, she was probably just delirious and tired, and then listening to all these accolades and praises from Cody and what a great, what great ideas she has and everything. And so she's like, yeah, no, yeah, that's good, that's great, I think it's a good idea. And then when Reba comes to their house, oh, actually it was a week later, so a week later Reba comes to the house, and Mary grew emotional and hugged me, Cody said, and said, what if we're not right? What if she's not meant to be with us? What if we're wrong about the way we feel? So Mary
Mm.
getting emotional during that time was not her being excited emotional by all this. That was Mary's fear coming out. All these
Right.
questions, fear-based questions that she poses them. So right from the get-go, she was kind of like, oh, brakes. I don't, wait. This is going too fast
Right.
already. I don't know. What if we're not right? And then the whole rest of that is just Cody convincing her that, oh, no. He basically, he felt the connection. He felt, he did everything short
Right.
of saying the Garrick God had a wind come through the garage and
Right. Right.
speak to me. It was like, no, you're right, Mary. I feel it. I'm convicted. You were right. You were right. And thus begins really their entire relationship, where she is always insecure from that point on, and
Right.
probably regretting, although would never admit it, that she pushed forward with this.
Yeah, and that's actually one of the sad things about it is that I've always held a position, and this is just my thing. Um, you should be honest about your position in any relationship you're in. You're like boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. Boundaries create good. Was it fences make for good neighbors? Boundaries
Mhm,
make for good relationships.
mhm,
And if you have those boundaries in place, things that you're willing to participate in and things that you're not willing to participate in, and be
mhm,
very clear about it, and
mhm,
don't bend on it, because in this particular case, if Mary is part of the polygamous family, as Robyn describes, most people in their church only have two wives. They don't have three, four, five, six, seven wives. They have two wives that they deal with, mostly because they can't
mhm.
afford full five, six, seven wives. But they
Right.
have two wives that they deal with, so it's commonplace. You have three wives. So already Cody was kind of tipping the scales with too many wives. He was already in that position.
Mhm,
And Mary is juiced up and she's gassed up into thinking that this is a great idea, and she agrees to it.
mhm,
And it's something that you're having problems in your relationship already, and you're agreeing to bring in new people into your relationship that already has problems, is already problematic, which is always a no-go, a bad idea. But she agrees to it. And then when she wants to go back and say, you know what, I thought about it, I considered it, I changed my mind. One of the things that I've always found in these types of relationships, or at least from what I've heard when I talk to folks in these types of relationships, is that they always say that they're always open to, the other person has every right to decide whether they want to do it or not.
mhm,
But the problem is that you never hear about what happens when they say, you know what, I know I agreed to it, but I don't want to do this.
mhm.
I know I agreed to have Robyn come into the family, but now that I think about it and I'm looking at it logistically, it's a bad idea.
Yeah.
And when Cody says, no, but it's something we talked about and you agreed to, and I think that we
Mhm,
should move forward, you don't have the veto power. And
mhm.
this again falls in the position of you're no longer a partner in your relationship, because a partner has the right to pull out of a
Right.
bad situation, but an employee doesn't.
Mhm.
So,
And we saw that with Christine. Like, we saw his
mhm,
true colors when the first person said, "Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and exercise that right that you've always said that we have. We can leave at any time. I'm leaving." He lost his cool.
right. No, you're not.
Yeah,
No,
right.
you're not.
I didn't mean that. That's what we
Right.
say for television. What are you talking about?
Right. If you
Yeah.
want to leave me, you have to leave here broke, busted, and not and
Mhm.
homeless. Like that's the only way
Mhm.
you can go. You all the money stays with me then,
Mhm. Mhm.
and you just make it untenable. It's an untenable decision for you. Like, oh, you
Yeah.
want to leave? Okay, you can't. You have to leave with nothing. Leave with
Yeah.
the rags on your back. That's
Yeah.
all. And
Mhm.
you have to leave your kids with me.
Yeah, he wanted that,
You
didn't he?
know,
That was crazy. He wanted
right,
50% custody of Truly, and he hadn't seen her but,
right,
like, 2 times in the last year.
yeah,
"You know
right.
you don't."
Like, you know what? All right, I'll drop her off. Oh,
Yeah.
you won't. Well, and the crazy part is, and here's the thing, and this is what I picked up on. When he said, I want 50% custody, what he actually said was, I want it in writing that I have 50% custody. He never
Mhm.
said he wanted to actually have her
Yeah,
50% of the time.
that's a good
He
point.
just wanted a contract or a codicil saying that he had her for
Mhm.
50% of the time, because there's there is a myth that runs around it, because I've heard it before. If you have 50% custody, that the other person doesn't have to pay child support because you have the child half the time,
Oh.
and you think that because you're both equally set
Mhm,
up that way, that you
mhm.
no longer have to pay child support. They can't get you for child support. That's what I think he was trying to sidestep. Now,
Ah.
in some jurisdiction, the jurisdiction I'm in, if you have, you could actually be living with your partner
Mhm,
and they take you for child support. If you're not married, they take you for child support. I guess technically, if you are married, you can't get child support, but they could
mhm.
take you for child support, and you could be paying for child support with a child that you live with. You know what I mean?
Okay.
100% of the time, you could be paying for
Mhm,
child support. So,
mhm.
so before you listen to internet gurus, this includes me. Make sure you talk to an attorney who is in your jurisdiction who can give you the information you need, because you will get jammed up with some foolishness. Because I think that's what Cody was. He was listening to that bull stuff with the on the manosphere guys sitting there having that conversation. Like, it only makes sense to me. And you
Yeah,
will go to court and get your back ripped out. Like,
yeah.
the judge will be like, what? You ain't paying nothing? Oh, well, we're gonna fix that right now.
Mhm, mhm.
You know, man? Like that truck you drove up in, yeah, you can go ahead and give her the keys.
That's
Like, we'll
right.
start there.
That's not yours anymore.
Right. But yeah, make sure you talk to an attorney. Make sure you talk to an attorney. But just because we're kind of rounding out, but there is a point too where it says a lot of positive things are happening there. But then Cody said he got to talking to her. Then all of a sudden, Robyn, she went, and this is the point where you were talking about earlier, where she had a discussion with her kids, because apparently her kids didn't like driving 4 hours down from one place to another. And somebody has said that earlier. Unless you are taking your child somewhere special,
Yeah.
it's damn near I won't say it is, but it's borderline abusive for you to just put your kid in the car for 4 hours at a time just to drive
Yeah.
them so that you can get your booty call on. Like,
Yeah.
that's extremely selfish.
Yes.
So this is the point where she has a conversation with her kids. I'm not going. And Shira is screaming in my ear that this is something you need to protect yourself from. And I went and I talked to my kids, and my kids were excited about going. So that's what made me decide to go. And that's the point you were talking about earlier. Then
Mhm.
Cody finding out she's coming down. Guess what Cody do? Cody goes out, he buys a bunch of food, or he takes food out the pantry. They don't really say where he got the food from, but I'm assuming that he probably went and bought a whole bunch of food, and he
Mhm.
planned himself a barbecue. So
Mhm.
he put together a little party. He's
Mhm.
coming down. And the craziest part to me was that he planned this party and he never told Janelle or Christine
Mm.
that they were going to have a party, and they were actually bringing in a woman that he was interested in dating into their home, their living space.
Mhm.
That,
Mhm.
to me, that is the craziest thing. And I'm really trying not to curse here. That is the craziest thing you could ever do, is to bring somebody to your wife's house. And I'm going to say your wife's house. He brought this woman to his wife's house and never told them that this is somebody I'm interested in dating. What do you think about that?
I didn't even
That is
catch that,
nuts.
James. I didn't. I was assuming they knew about it the whole time.
Yeah, he said that was it 742? Reba let Mary and me know that she had talked Robyn into coming to Lehigh. I was excited, and I wanted to put together a barbecue to welcome her. I still hadn't told Janelle about Robyn. I had
Uh-huh.
only seen Robyn a handful of time, and I wasn't sure what sort of footing we were on. I wanted to make sure she was at least slightly open to the idea of a relationship with me before I broached the subject with my wives. Naturally, I would need their consent to court her.
Okay.
That is craziness.
I get
Bruh,
what you're saying. Yeah, 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 yeah.
you are
Yeah.
making mistakes. Like, I'm not a polygamist. I'm just merely saying, like, just from what I know, I'm merely a monogamist. I'm merely a monogamist. I'm a pedestrian. I have that elementary education as far as women are concerned, compared to somebody as great as thee with the polygamy. But I'm just saying that, bruh, from what I know about women,
Mhm.
you do not bring a woman that you're attracted to this woman's house
Mhm.
and not let her know what's going on. If
Yeah.
your relationship, even if your relationship is open and you guys are out, getting a little taste of strange, whatever the case may be, that's what
Mhm.
your thing. They're good for you. Knock yourself out. But you let this woman know, because I've always taken a position that in my machinations and my imagination of what this relationship would entail, it would require a next level sense of honesty and forthrightness when you are having this type of relationship. If Robyn is somebody you're even slightly interested in having a relationship with, you should have sat down and had a conversation with your wives and let them know, so they're on point and on guard with everything that you're doing. Like,
Mhm.
this isn't something where you're a monogamist and you can't date her anyway, so it doesn't matter whether you like her
Right.
or not. This is
Mhm.
somebody you potentially could marry. So
Yes.
this should have been something that they knew about, especially inviting this woman to their house. Dog,
Well,
that's terrible.
and then moving forward with that, when he does talk to them and break the news, of course, he chose Janelle first. Janelle was going
Ooh,
to be the easiest nut to crack, not Christine. And
right.
and as you said before, because really Christine didn't matter in the end. If he could get a
Mm,
majority and count himself
right.
in the majority, even if he didn't count himself, it's 2 against 1. And so Christine was going to have to acquiesce and submit and keep sweet if she didn't like what was going down. So yeah, he goes to Janelle first, and then Janelle just disappoints. I get so
Well,
upset when I read that. I'm like, what do you mean
yeah.
you thought it was okay? What?
Well, you know why? Because Janelle, and one of the craziest things is that when Janelle is there, Janelle is playing her position.
Yeah,
Like,
she is.
and where I think
She is.
that, like, this is what I mean. You get to know your wives from what I know
Mhm,
about them, from the way they
mhm,
present themselves. Janelle always says one thing. If you ask her to describe herself, what does she say? I'm the logical one.
mhm,
So if you can go to her with the logical reason, if Janelle's the logical one, who's
mhm.
the emotional one? Christine.
Christine.
Right. So if I had to choose, like, who I had to talk to first about, especially about if it's a form of manipulation, and
Mhm.
I know I might be able to reason my way into a thing, I
Yeah.
would talk to Janelle first. If it's something where I have to pull on heartstrings and it required for me to pull that emotional card, then
Mhm,
Christine is the way to go. But
mhm.
from the way things are set up, you have Mary on your side, then you talk to Janelle. Yeah, well, Mary knows her and she really enjoys her and she says she's amazing and she's awesome. And then Janelle, with her logical mind, and Janelle is suited for polygamy. Like I said, she's
Yeah.
on board with it. So she's like, okay, we add to the family. I guess we do what we gotta do. All right,
Mhm,
just all right. Because even
mhm.
when they're talking about her coming down, Robyn moving down to Lehigh, Janelle had offered half of her house,
Yeah,
like the Lehigh house. She had the 2 levels. She
right.
said she could move in. I'll move up top or move down to the bottom, and she could have half the house. The
Yeah,
logical
yeah,
thing.
yeah,
And that's when
yeah.
Rob was like, "I ain't moving in with y'all. Are you crazy?"
Yeah, that should have been the first red flag there, because
Right.
originally when Cody presents this, she obviously didn't know Robyn's spending habits or her financial state at that time. She
Hmm.
just thought, "Oh, this is a lovely woman who that Mary likes, that Cody likes, and yeah, this is part of the faith." And you're right, Janelle was the one that would bring in more sister wives. She was the one that really wanted, ironically, because she wasn't raised in it, but she's the one that really embraced it
Right.
and was willing to continue on and live it. So yeah, she agreed to all of it. The point that she should have put her foot on the brake was right then when she offered to give half the house to Robyn. And Robyn basically comes out and just says, no, 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 this is a new relationship with Cody. We need our own private time. Like,
Right.
yeah. Oh, thanks for being crude.
Well, she said, you know what? I can't possibly move in with a man who's married.
Oh,
I can't
yeah.
be with a married man. That'd be so scandalous. And then,
Mhm.
and then in the next conversation, she says, well, I need to have him sleep over in my house as much as possible
Mhm.
because I
Mhm.
need to get to know what
Mhm.
happened. I bet
Mhm.
you didn't mess with married dudes. What happened?
Mhm. Mhm.
What had happened was I didn't want to move in with y'all.
Yeah.
And there was a point too where because Cody actually said something that I thought was interesting. He said that because even talking about like the finances and the money, because thinking about it, Janelle's the logical one. She's
Mhm.
also the one who was dealing with the money and worried
Right.
about money and where the money
Mhm.
was being spent. So when she said that she could move into the house, it wasn't just the fact that she wanted to move in the house because she wanted to be close. It was the idea that she knew how much money they had, and she
Mhm.
knew Robyn wasn't going to be able to afford to pay for a place, and that the family was going to pay and rent the house around the corner for Robyn, and
Mhm.
she wanted to make sure the money was tight. Cody says this. Cody says this, and I was actually surprised to read this part that he admitted this. I was very surprised that he admitted this.
Mhm.
But he had said the David Robyn, this is after he spoke to the elders, and Robyn said she wasn't going, I'm not going to speak to anyone. I'm not talking to nobody. I'm not asking for permission. So she put it all on Cody. Cody had to go talk to the elders in the church. He had to go talk to her father. The father said, I don't want you courting her, but you can get to know her. He spent a lot of time taking the wives and the kids, the 4 hours to go meet and talk with Robyn. And the
Mhm.
second the father said that you can go ahead and start courting her and you can start dating her, all the wives stayed their butts home and he was on the road by himself 4 hours to go
Mhm.
see her. But he
Mhm.
made this admission. He said when the day that Robyn's father called and gave me permission to court Robyn. This is on 81 second paragraph. The day that Robyn's father called me and gave me permission to court Robyn, my sales career had hit an all-time low because at this time he was selling billboards.
Mhm. Or
Things
trying
were
to.
so trying to. That's a good point. Uh, things were so tough that I was considering selling my car. Hey, first of all, bro, if things are that bad, that should have been the first thing that went. But I guess you don't get rid of the magnet. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like if you're trying to catch fish, you don't throw the rod out. So
Mhm.
so he said, things were so tough that I was considering selling my car. I didn't have two nickels to rub together, but I was still considering courting this amazing woman. I was certain that God was going to find a way for me to bring Robyn into my life. And at that point, once again, I said, that is selfish as hell. That's
Mhm.
selfish. Because
Mhm.
if you're sitting there saying that I don't have enough money to date this woman, you're also saying I don't have enough to take care of my wives that I already have. I don't have
Mhm.
enough money to take care of my 13 kids. Not forget taking care of this woman and taking care of her 3 kids that
Mhm.
she's bringing from a previous relationship. Nothing wrong with that. It is what it is, especially as you
Mhm.
start to get older and if you out there in the dating field, that's just the reality. People
Mhm.
gonna have history. So you have to get over that. So I understand that. But
Mhm.
at the same time, if I can't take care of my responsibilities, I'm not going out looking for additional responsibilities.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? More people that I need to take care of and be there for. I got to be there for the ones that I made
Yeah.
before I'm out there trying to take care of somebody else's children. And
Mhm.
that's one of the things that I had heard. And it's
Mhm.
extremely, like for me, that was extremely selfish, especially if you know that she's going to be reliant on you. For you to continually, even ask. Like, you knew what your money looked like before you asked the daddy for permission.
Right.
You checked your bank account. You knew you was going and you was swiping your card at the register, and you swipe your card and be like, please let it go through.
Yeah. Sweating.
Sweat bullets. As soon as the cashier say something, you be like, what you say? Oh, you're okay.
Yeah, that's totally Cody in a nutshell there, right? And I think it's also because he was so poor with the other wives for so long that he didn't think anything of it. Like, let's just throw one more in. It doesn't matter. I still it's going to be better for me. I've got her now. Right. So, and I'm used to not having any money, and God will provide. It'll be fine. But there's also another thing. I had heard this through the grapevine, and I don't know it to be true. So this is just speculation based on what other people said. But I had heard that the show was not as interested in going forward without the Robyn piece. That's what made it sensational. And that's what made it this kind of okay. And maybe they even met Robyn and knew, well, this is gonna be really good. We have to have Robyn as part of this. So
are you kidding me?
Yeah. Which would then be in the back of their minds, okay, the money's coming. Now, there's no guarantee of season 2, of course, but not that Cody ever had foresight. Like he can't see the forest for the trees for the like. I mean, look at the move to Vegas and how everything was like going. And then finally they settle down. Then they go and they move to Flagstaff. And that's like, he just makes dumb decisions and doesn't really think through things. And this would be one of those. He's just leading with the wrong head here. And he's like, I want her in the family. So according to TLC, if we're going to do this show, we need to have her as a part of it. And I want her anyway. And you all like her, right? And so then it kind of got pushed forward in that regard. And so then he was kind of justified. So it's possible that the book left out the conversation where he shared with her stepdad, we got money coming in, that, like things aren't really good right now, but the money's going to coming in. And that's probably also how he convinced Janelle to get on board with it and not insist that she sleep in the lower half or the top half of the house. That we've got, here's the contract, here are the dollars that are coming. And so, if it doesn't work out and we become poor again, then she will move in because we'll have no other choice. But right now, let's let her keep separate. So I don't know. I don't know that to be true, but it makes sense. Like I could see it both ways because he's an idiot. So, the way he wrote it in the book could be exactly the way it came out. Or it could be that they kind of knew about Robyn because they were fishing the idea out. They were doing pilots before it ever got picked up and all that stuff. So once she caught wind of it and then he caught wind of her, and they said, is there going to be another wife? I could see how the producers would do that. Like what would make a really good show is if we could show you bringing another one in. Well, I did meet this girl. And so then they arrange the whole thing and make it Mary's idea. And I could see how that would all come to fruition. So I don't know.
Well, I mean, I think it would make sense just from the perspective of if you, barring Robyn entering into the family, there will be more room for Cody and the other sister wives to maintain the facade of the polygamy propaganda show. The polygamy works because you wouldn't have as many kerfuffles or the disruptions that you have with Robyn entering into the family.
Yeah.
Especially after the conversation with Robyn, and especially if you find out that she believes that she's going to be the star of the show, that this is going to be her show, and both her and Cody take the position that they're going to be the flagships of the show, the stars of the show, then, from the production side, they may never say this to them directly, but I know that they would be thinking to themselves, they are fitting to blow this whole spot up. Like, this is going to be ridiculous because they all are super excited. They all think they're a lot, they're higher than everybody else. And this has the recipe for disaster. And I stand on the fact that I've always said that if anybody ever asks you to be on a reality show, like I know there's shows like when I was, about to show my age, when I was a younger dude, if ever you were in a relationship and you got a call from Jerry Springer, then you need to go home and have a conversation with your lady. If you
Mm-hmm.
got a call from Maury Povich show, you need to
Mm-hmm.
go home and have a damn conversation with your lady, and
Mm-hmm.
make sure you stop at the Walmart or Target or the Rite Aid or whatever and pick up one of them paternity tests and start swabbing
That's
cheeks.
right. That's right.
Because you're
And
about to find something
do it at
terrible.
home. Yep.
Right.
Because otherwise it's going to be right on Springer. That's right.
Right. You make sure she got some strong sneakers on because she fitting to
Mm-hmm.
run away because it's gonna be a
Mm-hmm.
bad time. But you're about to
Mm-hmm.
find something terrible out.
Mm-hmm.
So them looking at it from the production side, I can see that. I'll even take it a step further. I can see a scenario where the production team at TLC says, look, we'll split the rent with you. We'll help you pay the rent to get her down there because we think with her, that creates enough animosity and enough
Mm-hmm.
tension in the situation where we could
Mm-hmm.
have a reality show. I could see that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
again, I can't prove anything.
Right.
And this is just that's operating off of speculation. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. But they're just,
untwist
I mean,
yourself.
that would be brilliant on their part, right? Because there has to be a villain in these shows. There
Right.
has to be somebody that everybody doesn't like. You know, I mean, everything is, I mean, for the most part, Brady and that whole My Five Wives, everything seemed benign there. And I enjoyed the show. So, you know, to me, that was fine. So, but in general, and especially with the way TLC's programming has gone and the type of programming that they put out, there's a formula to it, and that is that there is going to be the person, and generally, and you know, a lot of these shows go that way as well. There has to be the villain that everybody hates, and some people intentionally play that role. They'll, you know, sign me up for Real Housewives or whatever, and I'll be mean to everybody. I don't care. You know, I want the paycheck.
Right.
And I want my social media platform to blow up. And, you know, like I'll deal with the ramifications later and tell everybody I'm really not that bad. And I'll go on another show and people will see that I'm a nice person. So I can definitely see them looking at the family and the persona that they put out where everything is sunshine and roses and going, I don't know how we're going to get this. Because originally, like going back to the Mormonism Live interview, they asked Cody to like, well, you know, what if this kid argues about that, or what, you know, like they tried to create situations that he's like, well, they would never do that. That's not, we're not doing that. That's not going to go this way. So production, that's their job, is to make sensational television. So right away, probably even before meeting Robyn, if they heard that there was somebody who was 10 years younger than the oldest wife, and it had been 14 years since they had a wife, they had to know it was going to upset the apple cart, no matter what she was like, no matter how much they really liked her. There was no way it was all going to stay sunshine and roses when the new year, and blending a family on top of it. Like if it wasn't her, it was going to be the kids. But somehow this was going to cause enough turmoil that's going to make the show interesting to go down the road. So yeah, I don't doubt that production had their hand in this too, and that there was backdoor agreements that were happening between Robyn and Cody and even production that none of the wives even knew about before it started. Don't doubt it at all.
Oh, big shout out to Kathy Mosley with the $1 super chat. Thank you, Kathy. Appreciate you. But even with that, I would but in that with you know, a show that you mentioned, My Five Wives, I think part of the reason why My Five Wives only had 2 seasons was the fact that they didn't have the big catalyst person who came in and upset the apple cart right off the rip.
Yeah.
They just didn't have the big bad.
I also heard that the one wife, the one that had a lot of insecurities, the dark-haired one, that her father or grandfather or somebody somehow was connected with polygamy that involved underage girls. And so that coming out, I don't remember the exact story, but like at one point I did a Google search like a year ago or something like that, when I'm like, whatever happened to that Brady guy? And so I went and looked at it and I'm like, whatever happened? I think it had like 2 seasons, maybe 3 at most. And then, that the story came out about
Right.
I can't remember. And I don't want to throw anyway. You can probably Google it and everybody can figure out exactly what it was. Cause I remember just Googling it and articles came up. But yeah, there was some sort of scandal in the
Yeah, it
past, which
was
is interesting because Christine's grandfather has kind of questionable underage girls also, but I don't know. Were you looking at it up or did you
yeah,
see it?
it's Rosemary Williams.
Yes. Yeah. Rosemary.
Uh
Yeah.
yeah, she said that she well, let me see, just I might be able to pull her picture up. Um she was she accused her father of misconduct,
Mm.
um
Okay.
sexual misconduct
Okay. Okay.
when she was a child. So
Okay. So
wow.
that was more
Yeah,
direct. That's probably why
yeah.
that one ended, whereas Christine's grandfather being so distant in time that they probably felt justified in separating that because, um, I mean, Christine's grandfather probably died because he was murdered. He probably died, and she probably didn't know him that well.
Yeah, he was well, he died early on. She
Yeah.
was he was killed by the LeBarons.
Right. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
her mother's people killed him.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah. So it's there's a twisted like, and that's one of the weird things about polygamy, or at
Mhm.
least I'll say some of the the members in a lot of these churches is that they always kind of, I think I've said this before, they always kind of look at um Warren Jeffs as the big bad. So you
Right.
say, oh, when they think we're like Warren Jeffs, but there's a lot of people in a lot of these different sects who have done a lot of horrendous things, like
Yeah.
terrible, horrible things, and they've
Yeah.
been accused of, some cases prosecuted for.
Mhm.
Um, that there, and then so many of them are, what makes it worse is so many of them are so interconnected to one
Mm.
another. Like they'll be
Mhm.
like their uncle, their cousin, their brother, or the,
Mhm.
second marriage guy or whatever.
Mhm.
And so they're all related to some very, heinous folks, like some
Yeah.
crazy folks.
Yeah, there's a lot between Warren Jeffs and we're the perfect polygamous family. There's a
Right.
huge gamut of misconduct that's in there. So just to say we're not Warren Jeffs doesn't really
Right,
mean
right.
much.
And that's a low bar. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
Warren Jeffs. Like,
Yeah.
what?
Okay.
Nobody should be like Warren Jeffs. Like, what are you talking? You
Exactly.
don't open your conversation with that. That's scary. You know, did you put that out as a thing?
Yeah.
So we talked about Cody admit to being broke as he about to bring Robyn
Mhm.
in.
Mhm.
And then he says that then Robyn actually had this to say, which I thought was crazy interesting, on page 82. We're almost done, guys. It's almost over. But on page 82, down in the second paragraph, she said something that I thought was interesting. She said some of my sister wives were more interested in the sisterhood than in the husband. But perhaps since I've been married before, I knew that I needed a man whom I loved, trusted, cherished, and adored. I also knew that asking for and receiving all these things is hard.
Mm.
And when I first read that, I was like, I wonder which wife she's talking about. Now I know that Christine said it in the opening of the show. I
Yeah.
was interested in the family, not the man.
Mhm.
But as
Mhm.
I was reading this, especially under Janelle's matrimony part, when she came into the family,
Mhm.
that actually describes more Janelle too. To me, it actually
Mhm.
describes Janelle more than even Christine. That
Mhm.
she was interested in like the sisterhood aspect and
Mhm.
not necessarily as concerned about the man aspect. Because
Right.
Janelle was, like I said, she's the one that, for me, in my opinion,
Mhm.
she seems to be the most suited for polygamy,
Yeah.
because she's okay with her husband going off and being with
Mhm.
another woman.
Yeah.
And she may, if she does have jealousies or concerns of that nature, she doesn't let it override her decision making or her ultimate decision to be part of this family. Like, she
Mhm.
doesn't question whether polygamy is right for her, where I can see the other women kind of questioning whether this is something they want to participate in. And maybe that's just because they've been exposed to it for so long that they've had the opportunity to be like, is this something I want to do? Because for them it
Right.
was an option, whereas Janella wasn't an option, you
Right.
know.
Right. Yeah, it actually, you're right, it does describe both of them, um,
Hmm.
that they were it doesn't describe Mary,
No.
but definitely Christine and Janelle, and definitely more Janelle than it does Christine. It describes Christine in words only. This is
Hmm.
the mantra that she would put forward for
Right.
many seasons and say to everybody. It's what she wanted to be. She wanted to be the perfect polygamous wife, and but deep down inside, Christine's just full of emotions. And
Right.
she also fell in love eventually with Cody, because both Janelle and Christine, neither, that's proof of it. Both of them married him when neither of them were really in love with them. They were kind of infatuated a little bit. And he wasn't
Right.
really in love with them either. Which is
Hmm.
interesting, because we can flip this on Cody too and say that he wanted the family more than he
Right.
wanted the wives.
The
And then now
wives.
all of a
Right.
sudden he's changing his tune after he met Robyn.
Right. Well, even to that, because somebody had something interesting to say, but even to that, I would say this, because I've heard Cody make that argument, and I've actually had this conversation, but we were talking about children. And the thing that I've always held out was Cody takes a position that, well, they begged to get into the family, and they came in and they made certain agreements. Well, it was up to you, as if you want to take the position, especially as the grand leader or whatever.
Mhm.
It's up to you to make sure that you safeguard the family. It's your
Mhm.
role to make sure you make good decisions on who you want to be with. When I had
Mhm.
this conversation when it came to kids, my baby mama is crazy, and she this, that, and the other. At the end,
Mhm.
happy Mother's Day. But at the end of the day, at the end of the day, bruh, the thing I would always say is, bruh, you decided to lay down with that person,
Mhm.
and you made this other person, and now you want to come to me and complain and talk about how crazy she is. Her ass was crazy before you laid down with her.
Mhm.
You made that choice. So
Mhm.
when I hear Cody complain about these women begging to get into the family, I don't care whether they begged. They could have came to your house on bended knee and begged and pled with you to get into that family, sat outside your house for 30 days and 30 nights asking to get in your family. If you opened your door and let them into your family, that is on you. That's
Yeah.
your fault. That's
Mhm.
on you. So I never hold that against them. And it's their total right. If they're attracted to you, it's their right to say, hey, I'm attracted to you. I like to find out more about you. Let's, talk about what we're going to talk about. And
Yeah.
if that's not something you're into, you should have made a different choice. But
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with them. And I think I say all that to say this. In short, it's a dumbass argument to say that you that they're somehow wrong for asking to get into the family, and
Right.
somehow it's their fault that they asked to
Right.
get into the family, so they're less than. Somebody
And
had to ask
to
somebody.
Right, and to insult them on television and make them appear as if they were panting dogs to
Right,
get into the family was just like a new low for Cody at that point too.
right. Yeah, Mister, I'm about to sell my car. They begging to get in the family, really? They
Mhm.
sitting there with you because there's a scene I played it before. It's a scene from a movie called Fences. It's actually a play from August Wilson.
Mhm.
It's a stage play, very good play. But one of the key phrases, there was a guy. He's cheating on his wife. He has an outside kid with this other woman, and he wants to leave his wife. And he's explaining to her on his way out why he needs to leave. When I'm with her, she makes me feel special. I kick my feet up on the furniture. I feel like I can be all the stuff I want to be, and I want so much more. And the wife turns to him and says, Viola Davis is the actress who plays in this particular role, but in the
Mm.
movie. But she turns to him and says, I was right there with you. When you were suffering and struggling, I was right there with you. And when I hear Cody sit there and talk about these women and the things that they they suffer. And when I met Robyn, my heart was free and I was so open. These women were struggling with you. You don't think that there was guys who came into their lives and guys that they met and they looked across the room and they didn't think that these guys were attractive and they didn't want to run off with them and forget you and leave the family, leave the kids. But every day they came home and made a different decision to come home to you and try to work it out with you so that they can make the family work.
Yeah.
And then you turn your back on it. And this is part of the reason why I think that so many people have issues and problems with the way Cody is presented on the show, because that's what they see. These women decided to stay with you for 30 years and work it out with you for 30 years and try to improve their lives. And even though you were met with struggles and challenges, they met those struggles and challenges with you to improve the family. They suffered, they denied themselves so that they could do that for you and do that for the family. And when it came your time to make those same sacrifices, you weren't strong enough or man enough to be able to make those decisions to improve the family and stick with the family. And that's why Cody has such an image problem on television, or at least in my opinion.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you. Yeah.
Oh, check this out. Christian M. I hope I'm saying that right. But being poor is not a crime or something to be ashamed of. Absolutely. If you have it, some days you have it, some days you don't. And even the haves can have not if given the right circumstances. However, when money is being spent on booty calls and ugly sports cars instead of nutritional food, then it is a crime. Neglect. I 100% agree with that statement. I 100% agree with that. But
and on the flip side of that, it's also a crime when you're living in Vegas in an $800,000 house, but you're on food stamps.
Right.
And the food in your refrigerator has a sign, nobody touch this, because by law it can only go to my kids because I didn't pay for this food to get. It works both ways. There's crimes on both ends in this family.
Yeah, it's insane. It's insane. And then even I get it. Like if you are able to maneuver and give your kids the best lifestyle you can, have at it. But it just seems like one of the craziest things to me, even with the whole Vegas thing, and I suspect why it's that way, and I have a whole theory as to why they sold the homes in Vegas. But it just seemed like, at least in the telling of the show, the moment it seemed like they got settled in Vegas, everybody has a house. This is the best possible situation that you guys are willing to participate in. Ideally, you should all be in one house, but you don't want that. So this is the next best thing. You're in a cul-de-sac by yourself on the street. Everybody has these big, beautiful homes. It's awesome. Everybody's house is pretty much equal because they're all pretty much the same. Cookie cutter homes, big mansions. And you say, you know what? Let's sell those houses. Let's sell those houses because my wife deserves to have a mansion, a real mansion, and you guys need to be living in trailers. Like, it's insane to me. It's insane.
Do you think that they were almost financially underwater in those houses? I was wondering if, in order to finance them, because their finances were so incredibly poor, if they had to turn it into almost like a balloon payment at the end type thing, that they started off, we can afford this, and the show's going to bring in more money, and we have My Sister Wives Closet's going to make millions, and we'll have other ventures that will bring in a ton of money, so we'll get to the point that we'll be able to pay more. And then they got to the point that it wasn't increasing, and they got themselves stuck to the point that they had to sell them because they would have lost them. I'm wondering. I don't know.
Well, that actually is in line with what I was thinking. Because the way they presented it from the beginning, in order, because I did this simple math on it. Like, if each one of the houses were, was it $400,000 a piece? In my estimation, I think that what they did, hold on one second. Let me call this up. Okay. So in my estimation, what they did was They looked at it and said, okay, each one of these houses are going to be about $400,000.
Mm-hmm.
So that's $1.6 million. Um, that the houses would be worth. Like, so you guys are, and I know that they have 1.6 million just laying around the crib that's
Mm-hmm.
chilling on it.
Mm-hmm.
So you're sitting there with $1.6 million. You got to put down, in order for you to qualify for most conventional loans, you got to put down at least 10 to 15%.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to put it down so you don't have to pay the PMI or the
Right.
mortgage insurance, that's at
Mm-hmm.
least 20%.
Mm-hmm.
That's insane. There's no way they had that money, that
No.
kind of money just laying around. So what I suspect, because that would have been about close to $800,000,
Mm.
somewhere around there.
Okay.
So if you guys didn't have that money, so what they most likely did was they took out an adjustable rate mortgage, which would have had a term life of maybe anywhere from 5 to 7 years, depending on the rate. And at the end of that mortgage, like the whole time while you're doing adjustable rate mortgage, this would be a mortgage that most people, for those who are not aware, this is the type of mortgage that investors would use. So every mortgage has a purpose and a plan. Typically, if you're buying a home, you want to try to get into what's called a conventional or traditional mortgage, where you would pay the same amount over the course of a 15-year, 20-year, or 30-year term. And you'll pay that same amount. The only reason why your mortgage will go up is because the insurance is increased or your taxes have increased or decreased. They've
Mm-hmm.
gone up. That's the only way your mortgage goes up. That's what, most people would suggest. Then you have what's called an adjustable rate mortgage. There's many different programs, but then you have what's called like the adjustable rate line of mortgages, where this is what is often termed as a balloon mortgage, where it's based on, you put down a smaller down payment,
Mm-hmm.
and throughout the term of the loan, you're paying the interest on the home. So if the interest rate is really, really low, like 0% or 2%, then you're paying that interest. If the rate, if the interest rates, for goodness gracious, go up, then
Mm-hmm.
you're paying a higher interest rate. But at the end of that term for the adjustable rate mortgage, you haven't paid any principal.
Mm-hmm.
So if you borrow $400,000 to buy that home,
Mm-hmm.
right, then you've only paid interest throughout the entire time you've been in that home. So at the end of that term, you have to come up either with a new loan,
Mm-hmm.
or you have to come up with the cash, or the
Yeah.
bank gets your house. And
Yeah.
I think that that's what they fell into. Like you said, I think they were looking at it saying to themselves, we're making this good money. And if everything goes well, Sister Wife's Closet takes off, our, MLMs take off, we're going to be millionaires. We'll be able to just pay that money right out. So when the term comes up, then it's done. The reason why I say is that for investors, just to complete the thought, the reason why it's for investors is because if I'm purchasing a home that I plan on selling, flipping, or turning right around, then I don't want to put a whole bunch of money into the house so that I can buy the house and it's just equity just sitting there.
Yeah.
I want to be able to have that working capital so that I'm able to invest in repairing the home and putting the home to market so that I can sell the home for a profit. And so in that case, I have friends who do they were doing the whole flipping stuff and even buying and renting properties. But when you do that, you only want to make about 4 payments on top. Like you only make about 4 or 5 months you have that house and you want to get it right back out. So you want to have your construction guys show up, do what they need to do, flip it around, the interior decorators come in, design the house, decorate it, and you want to put it on the market and get that house closed out as quickly as possible. You do not want to sit there. You do not want to go 5 years paying for this house at all. So that's the reason why those mortgages tend to work. But yeah, it's just a bad idea. But that's what I think happened. And at the end of that, what happens is if you have any equity in the home, like for instance, they bought the houses for $400,000, then they turn around, if they're able to sell the houses for just even numbers, $400,000, they bought the homes. If they were able to sell the homes for $800,000, then they'll walk away with $400,000 profit that they could purchase another home with.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I think that money came from.
Yeah.
Because the numbers didn't make sense when they were talking about like how much money they got out of the house unless they were doing the arms. That's why I suspect that.
I
Can't
think
prove it, but
I
that's what I
remember
suspect.
reading somewhere. I think they all made about 100,000. They
Right,
expected to make a lot more than that, except for I remember the first one that sold was Robin's, and that one made
right.
more money, which is why they kind of held out on the other ones. But then they all made about 100,000. Hers made more, but I swear I had heard at one point that they took out a $70,000 second mortgage on that house to pay for Dayton's medical expenses.
Right.
So,
Right.
and who knows how many other, like I'm not into doing the whole deep dive on all of that, but there's no telling how many times a refinance or a second mortgage was put on one or the other one. So they may not have walked away with that $100,000 off of the houses when they sold either. Yeah,
Well,
I'd like to
because
know.
there was one point where well, let me just give Lizzie B a shout out. Lizzie B with a $5 super chat. Christine's house, Janelle's house, Robin's McMansion, 7 bedrooms, and she refused to work. Inequality at its best.
Yeah, that's true, Lizzie.
Thank you, Lizzie B. It's so true. So true. Just to add up. But the thing was, there was a point, and the reason what got me thinking about like the equity and all that in the homes as far as like the second mortgages is because when Mary had talked about purchasing Lizzie's the Lizzie's Inn or whatever, that place she
Right.
bought,
Mhm.
Cody had made the suggestion of her taking out a second mortgage and using equity
Mhm.
from the home to purchase that property.
Mhm.
So that once he said that, I was like, okay, they're aware of it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I was
This is
hoping,
this is a familiar thing here.
right, right. They've been down this street before.
Yeah.
Like I was hoping they didn't know anything about it because it's a great way. Like if you don't have the money to repay, it's a great way for them to take your house. Like
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I look at everything from a perspective of they're trying to come and get your. They trying to get your. I'm sorry, I almost cussed, but they trying to get your house. They coming to get your house. I almost
Uh-huh.
went French on you, but they trying to get your house. And it's if you don't have the money to pay your equity, because the same way your mortgage is tied to, like if you don't pay your mortgage, they can foreclose on your property.
Mhm.
If you have a second mortgage or equity loan on your property and you don't repay that equity loan, they can come and take your house.
Yeah.
Now, granted, they'll have to work it out with the person in first position, which would be the first person you have the mortgage with, but they still have the right to be able to foreclose on your home.
Mm.
And that's where it gets kind of sticky. And like you said, with Dayton's medical bills,
Mhm.
that would be something that they would take out money for. And if you recall, when they sold the houses, or Cody was doing a presentation in Arizona, I know we're a little far afield, but when Cody was doing a presentation about Arizona, what was the one thing you say? Where we go one, we go all, like the whole
Mhm.
QAnon thing. Where we go
Mhm.
one, we go all. And he kept saying that. And I think that part of the reason, again, this is my speculation, just what I'm putting together, disclaimer, what I took from that was if they didn't sell those homes and they didn't do that right away the way they were talking about doing and move to Arizona
Yeah.
because they had to sell them homes, Robyn couldn't afford to stay there. So if she couldn't afford to stay there, it was going to be a stranger living in her house
Mm.
because she had to sell her house.
Mhm.
I think Robyn had to sell her home. And
Mm.
that's why they decided to all came down to the agreement that they would have to sell the houses and they would go somewhere else.
Mhm. Mhm.
You know what I mean? Because otherwise, that move between the move and the sale of the homes at the time made 0 sense. The
Right.
the fact that they were rushing to sell the houses and flip them and
Yeah.
get them on the market as quickly as they did made 0 sense. The time that they put them on, like what Janelle said, uh, was eternally true. Like you never, ever, ever, if you can prevent it, try to put your home up for sale in September and October because
Right.
you're right around the corner from the holidays, and
Mhm.
which nobody is, people aren't going out Christmas shopping looking at houses. Two, most people who in those size homes, I'm sorry, I'm going long winded on this, but most of the people who have those size homes also have families. Those are family style homes. And if
Mhm.
somebody has family, they have kids. If they have kids, their kids are in school. If their kids are in school, they're not trying to purchase a home in December and then
Right.
ride that mortgage out for 6 months
Right.
and wait for their kid to get out in June. They'll
Right.
start looking usually around springtime to
Mhm.
purchase a home so that way they can hit closing around summer when the kids get out of school. And that'll be the earliest you can put a house up.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's my
Yeah.
thoughts.
Yeah. No, those are absolute thoughts. When we were moving and we had kids, that was always our thought too. Like, well, we're not moving this year because we didn't find what we wanted,
Right.
before the time that would happen over the summer. And you're not going to up. In my philosophy, and my husband's philosophy is we're not upsetting the apple cart. We're not pulling
Right.
the kids out in the middle of a school year and making them go to another school. It's enough if you're going to switch school districts in general. It's a change for kids, but certainly it's not going to happen during a school year. So, which is why I could never get on board with Cody wanting to constantly move and then obviously not taking his kids into consideration
Right.
with it. Where we go one, we go all, and it doesn't matter. And not letting, even if they had arrangements, the whole then Mariah Leon situation where Leon wanted to stay and Leon had people to stay with and just wanted to complete the year. I could never keep my kid from doing that. I'd be like, okay, you stay with Aunt so and so, and I'm going to come visit you often, but we have to move. But I understand, like there was no individuality of the kids and seeing their needs. It was where we go one, we go all. What Cody wants to do, everyone will follow. That's how it is.
Right. I'm on a lead and they will follow. And that's one
Mhm.
of the things that actually is it is like for me and my approach to parenting, that was one of the things that really bothered me about the entire situation was not just the issue with Leon crying to stay because she felt like she was being uprooted because again, she wasn't just going to a private school. It wasn't just the fact that you were taken out of school. She
Mhm.
was going to a school that she felt comfortable with that was a private school that dealt with people who are in similar situations. And
Yeah.
you tore out of that school. Then Hunter, you tore him out of his school. And he was off track for at least a year, 2 years. And it took
Mhm.
him a little while to get himself readjusted.
Yeah.
Then as soon as you get I'm about to say it's not Garrison. As soon as you get Gabriel, he gets set up and he's excited about school. He's in a sport. He has lots of friends. He has a whole girlfriend and
Mhm.
everything else. His life is going the way he wants it to go. You rip him out of school,
Yeah.
as well as Gwendolyn, who was running for ran for and won school government
Mhm.
association SGA. She was in
Mhm.
school. She was got a position she wanted. Her life was moving the way she wanted it to. And
Yeah.
you just decided that, hey, you know what? It tickles my fancy to leave. And you
Yeah.
don't take any of them into consideration. And oh well, they just have to come. That's just, I mean, it's rough. I
Yeah.
understand. If you do what you got to do, if you have to move, it's
Right.
something you financially have to do. It is what it is. But just to
Mhm.
decide to do it the way they presented on the show, it was
Yeah.
a little rough to watch,
Yeah, it
at
was.
least for me.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Um, Oh, what's this? Oh, 80, 31. Oh, yeah, yeah. This is something I wanted to touch on too.
Mm.
There was a point where yeah, I want to thank everybody for hanging out with us too. This is the last point I have. I don't know if you have another point, Jenny, but I want to thank everybody for hanging out with us, especially on the earlier time. I know I kind of dropped the ball with the late notice. But again, for those who are not aware, or maybe you weren't here when I first started, I will be on tomorrow with the Sister Lives. But then next Tuesday, starting Tuesday, I'll roll out the time that I'll be doing it. I'll be doing a daily live for about an hour, hour and a half, and I'll be pulling people up. So we'll have a good time with that. But
That's awesome.
yeah, we'll be talking about some crazy stuff. It's gonna be insane. But the thing I wanted to bring up is for those who may remember, Robyn has always held out that she was the bee's knees. She was highly sought after. She was
Yeah.
highly requested. She was
Yeah.
like a hit Drake record at the club. Highly requested. Drake, I don't know. I'm guessing. But but I ain't been to the club in I don't know how long. But so Cody had said that talking about competition, he said I had been planning to ask Robyn to marry me on her birthday, but I jumped the gun because Cody.
Because Cody.
Jumped
Yeah.
the gun. A few days before her birthday, she told me that an older and esteemed man in our faith had called to inquire about courting her. This was a shock to my system. I was devastated. I didn't have the money to marry and support Robyn, but I knew that I would have to find a way, even though Robyn told me the man she knew where she belonged. I guess she told the man she knew where she belonged. I was still shaking. The next day, Robyn and I drove back on Thanksgiving point. As we sat there talking, I was overcome with what I believe was God's spirit. God's spirit. Once again.
All right. That's what you want to call it.
Yeah, Garrison, we'll call it. Yeah, that's what we'll call it. We'll call it the spirit. If you want to blaspheme, that's what she said.
Right.
But before, not on the Sabbath, sucker. The devil is a lie. Before I knew what I was doing, I took her hand and asked her to marry me. Now, I guess I do have one more point after this. I'm sorry. I wasn't honest. I got a bonus point. But what do you think about him saying that, well, I guess an esteemed member of the church, older esteemed member of the church, had started inquiring about courting her?
I don't know if I believe it.
Yeah, I'm in that.
I don't even know. I don't know. I feel like Robyn didn't want him to drag his feet anymore. The show's moving forward. She needed to get on it. And so the best way to do that is to put out this no name. There's somebody significant in the church who's been expressing an interest in me, just so you know. Like, I told him, I think that I want you, but I just want you to know. Like, why does she need to tell him that? There was no reason to tell him that other than to be, I don't know, just show her insecurity and that, or to get him to just push forward and do the proposal after all, because, she claims, as you read through this book, and, again, there's no timeline. So it's really kind of hard to know exactly how long everything is. But she made it sound like she really wasn't falling in love with Cody until kind of the very end. And then it was starting to like, oh, yeah, okay, whatever.
I give in. Yeah, she said actually she wasn't in love with Cody until she saw him she even came over to the barbecue. It was at the barbecue. She comes over to the barbecue. She walks in. Cody's all excited. He's there flipping burgers, trying to look like the manly man. Look, I'm working the grill. And she comes in. He sees her. He looks at her and thinks she's about to give him the big, hi, Cody. And she just walks past him and kind of blows him off a little bit and said it shook him. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because she was playing hard to get, but she didn't fall in love with him until the kids. Janelle went up to Wyoming and picked the kids up from his parents' house, brought them back. And then when they came in, he's all hugging them and they were excited to see each other. And that's when she said she fell in love with Cody. When she saw him with the family, because the family is so important to her. But I'm a little torn because on one side, I completely agree with you, because it's just such a weird thing that if you're dating somebody that you're interested in, that you would say to them, oh yeah, by the way, this other guy keeps asking me out. Like, it's just a weird play. Yeah. And the other part of it is something that he said. I knew what I was, when he said that I was shook. It was a shock to my system. I was devastated. I didn't have the money to marry and support Robyn, but I knew I would have to find a way. That's the result of, like you said, if she's playing him, that's what she's got her way. Right. So that's what I was trying to do. Mission accomplished. The only reason why I would say that I'm on the other side of it too, and it's just a toe. It's not the whole leg. It's just a toe. The only reason I say that is because in a lot of these circumstances and situations, not necessarily just point to this particular church, but in a lot of these situations where it's a male-dominated system or institution, and they pretend like the women have choices or decisions when it comes to a lot of the pairings and matching ups that happen, there's a lot of damn creeps. And these creeps see a young girl, a young woman. I only call her a girl. She's a grown-ass woman. You know, see this young woman, you know, have kids, and maybe I can manipulate, and ooh, she kind of strike my fancy. Some of these creeps might very well have looked at her and said, you know, I want to get to know her. So there might have been one or two people, you know, especially like, oh, I'm not related to her. Amazing.
How can that be?
Yeah, right. I thought I knew everybody in the church. You know, so she was like, whoa, Pickens, you know what I mean? Because she married into the polygamy, you know, through her mom was brought into it. So technically she wasn't related to anybody. So she would have been like, you know, kind of that chef's kiss starting out.
Yeah. I mean, it's possible, James. That it makes sense too. It could go either way.
Right. But that's the only reason I said it. Now, I do think that it could be both, though. I'm not even going to pretend like it couldn't be both. Like, both things are not mutually exclusive.
Right.
So both things could very well be true. The last point I wanted to make, and if you have anything that you wanted to say or demonstrate, before I get to that, passing for normal. Okay, I love the name. Passing for normal. $2 super chat. Shira later, J&J. Okay. Shira, the battleground.
Shira.
The last point I wanted to make was this last section. This is the last paragraph. Thank you so much, Passing for Normal. Awesomeness.
Thank you for passing for normal.
Yeah, right? Says, when Christine and I got engaged, she told me she wouldn't kiss me until we were at the altar. After we were married, she realized, she said she had made a mistake and made me promise that if I married again, I kiss my next wife before we said our vows. So I took Robyn's face in my hands and I kissed her. Robyn leaped out of the car and she jumped into my arms. This happened on September 26th. We wouldn't get married for 6 months. Now, I'm going to say right now, that's a damn lie, because that's not what was said in the show. That's exactly the opposite of what Christine said on the show. She said on the show, I was offended and she was mad and hurt that she found out that Cody and Robyn had sealed their engagement with a kiss. She said it hurt her. Now, that don't sound to me like somebody who said they made a mistake.
Right.
She said she felt like Christine, that she had basically, Cody had cheated on her.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I remember that. She was very hurt by that. And I'm like, because we were all hurt by it. Him with her. And then the book, again, just like you, I've just read this too. And I'm like, he really write that? I really would love to know the conversation between Christine and Cody when she read this.
Right. Yeah, you know,
or maybe she was so stuck on the nacho thing that she didn't have a chance to address this.
She didn't get to that page.
She's like, I'm closing this book. I'm done with it.
If I keep reading this book, we getting divorced. You know, right. I'm making life choices. And that was one of the things, like, the idea of that, like, I get what Christine was feeling, because she felt as though, in Christine's position, she felt that if he did that, he was stepping outside of his marriage and his commitment to the family. And she felt very strong about it. And it's weird to me. One of the things that is a little telling, I guess it happens, but it would just be a red flag for me, would be that Cody is saying what Christine is thinking, and he's expecting her to go along with his perception of what makes him sound good, because this is what made him sound good. It was so romantic. We pulled in and, I got pressured into asking her to marry me, and I did that, and I kissed her, and then she jumped for joy. She jumped in my arms, and it was just like a movie.
Mm.
And you expect Christine to go along with your story, but she absolutely wouldn't. And I think that is kind of one of the weird nuances of what happened within the family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what I would do for a second book, for
Yeah,
them to go back and do this again now. But that's
yeah, the
one of the most
correction.
blatant lies because of how emotionally hurt she seemed when she found out, and she said that it's cheating on your wife is what it is. So you don't kiss a married woman, or you don't kiss a
Right,
married man. It's considered complete cheating in our culture, and because she made sure that she respected that. I think that's probably why it hurt that much more. It's that there was no respect for her in that. And that Cody knew. He's had 3
mhm,
wives before. He knows the rules. He just
right,
breaks them all. And he got away with it for so long that he
right,
probably thought he was still going to do it. But like, yeah, this book was probably a big part of the demise of Cody too.
right.
Because
Well,
he really
and
presented himself pretty like happy-go-lucky, just kind of the goofy dad that likes to play with the kids. And so, you were kind of like, he's kind of weird, but whatever. He didn't seem.
right,
This book was the first time you really got to read what he was thinking throughout all of this, and it's just making him look terrible.
right, right. And it's just a bad look. I want to say, get well soon. And Kathy Ferran broke her foot. Hope you
Aw,
feel better.
sorry,
And she said
Kathy.
she's out. So you have a good night, Kathy. But I 100% agree. I 100% agree. I think that like sometimes uh, there's a time for you to be honest, and there's just a time for you to hire a publicist. And my
Yeah.
man should have hired a PR representative, or he should have hired a professional to read through
Mhm.
this book, because this
Mhm.
book makes him look terrible, because
Mhm.
it screams that you don't pay attention to the needs and desires of your partner, or
Mhm.
in his case, partners.
Mhm.
Because if you would have had a conversation with Christine, and one of the things that, again, this is just my machinations or my imagination, my theory on polygamy. In order for it to work, you have to create an environment. This is where it is very difficult for me. You have to create an environment for these ladies where they can feel safe and secure in their relationship. They have to have an ultimate security in their relationship to allow you to be able to freely move between each one of these ladies and their
Mhm.
homes, or their places in wherever they're staying or whatever.
Mhm.
And he hasn't done that. The biggest failure was Christine, Mary, and Janelle didn't feel secure in themselves and in their relationship before you started bringing in this other woman. And it didn't
Yeah.
matter. Like it hurts more because she's younger and all that. But
Mhm.
ultimately, that wouldn't even have made a much of a difference, because you could have brought in a woman that was 10 years their senior. If they
Mhm.
didn't feel comfortable in the relationship, then it's going to create problems.
Mhm.
It's just going to create problems. And
Mhm.
in the little things that are going to hurt, like I said, the little dishonesties, the little lies, the little secrets, and those kind of things will destroy any relationship, but especially these kind of relationships, because they're ultimately hinged, and their foundation has to be on a place of complete honesty and complete transparency.
Mhm.
If he's going out and you plan on marrying somebody and you plan on proposing, you should have had a conversation with your wives and told them, tonight is the night. I'm proposing tonight, and this is something I'm doing. I'm asking her to join the family. And
Yeah.
in Cody's response, I can see him saying, as he did with the dress, this
Mm.
is my decision because it's
Mhm.
my wedding. But
Mhm.
bro, it's not your wedding if you have 3 other partners.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where it is, because
Mhm.
you're not marrying her, you're bringing her into the family, you're bringing her into the partnership.
Mhm.
So I have a say, and
Mhm.
so I should be apprised of any changes to the partnership. You know what I mean? Especially my cut. Like if it's going to affect my cut, I should have a say. Like if this is a business, yeah, I'm gonna bring in 4 more people, and we're gonna split the money up 4 more ways. No, we not. You can split your share up 4 more ways. So
his impulsivity and immaturity is just forefront throughout the season and throughout the book. Like it is just constant that he just shoots from the hip and does what he wants. His selfishness is overwhelming. Especially to be in a polygamous relationship. That's the ironic part about it. You have to be one of the most selfless people to be able to give and try to make things fair and to make it equal and right. But he just saw himself as the ultimate patriarch and that everybody else would fall in line.
Right. And even with the idea of the patriarch, one of the challenges that I have even with that notion is that if you're going to hold yourself out to be the leader, then too many people, when they hear leader, they hear Lord and master. They don't hear, like in my mind, if you're going to be a leader of these group of people, then you have to put these group of people ahead of you. And if there's something like if there's a puddle in the road, you have to be willing to lay yourself across that puddle so that the people who follow you can traverse this obstacle safely and securely. And in this particular case, the failure came in not because these women didn't know what they were doing and the jealousy, they let jealousy take in and somebody wrote earlier the cloak of charity wasn't in place. It didn't work because he didn't make the sacrifices that were necessary for these ladies to feel comfortable with themselves, secure with themselves, and feel fulfilled enough in these relationships, because that's the big part to me, that they have to be able to feel fulfilled enough in these relationships that they can allow your other relationships to blossom. And part of the reason why I choose to be a monogamous is because I don't see a pathway where I can make multiple people feel secure, safe, and fulfilled in a relationship if I'm splitting my time amongst multiple people. And that's where I just struggle. So I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying I can't do it.
Yeah. I was listening this week to I'm not even sure what the name of their channel is, but they're a married couple that are ex-polygamists. And no, she's ex-LDS and he's ex-fundamentalist polygamist. And they were talking, and it was interesting to listen to their perspective of it. They're out now and not in the, he's not a fundamentalist anymore. I think she's not even in the LDS church anymore. I think now they're a Christian. It doesn't matter. But being out from what they were in, they had an interesting perspective. And she was saying, if you truly are going to live in a polygamous family, there does have to be a patriarch. I don't know if you can hear that. My cats are trying to open the door. In the door handle.
Let us in.
They're like, let us in. It's feeding time. It's past feeding time. And I understood and could appreciate what she was saying. The concept being there needs to be order. There needs to be rules. We're going to have this many people and we are going to have to share. So you not only have to be a person with a compassionate heart and to understand how to live a life making things equal, but you do have to have the person that makes the final say. The key is it has to be a good person. And that's where it all falls down and it's all going to crumble from above, and we're all flawed. So how do you get that person? Like the ideal of it makes sense on paper, but the reality is we're all flawed people. And in that person up there, and you get a narcissist up there, it's even worse. In terms of doing it. So I found that interesting because I'm so anti-patriarch when I hear the word, but I just wanted to throw that out there because it kind of made me think this week. And I like it when people kind of challenge my thinking, especially when I feel like this is bad, and they're like, well, wait a minute. You're like, this is why it is set up the way it is, even though they don't agree with it and they left it. They had a very good, intelligent way of presenting this is the structure and why patriarchy is the only way if you're going to be in polygamy because
Right,
there just
right,
needs to be a leader. And Cody would waffle between I'm the patriarch and I don't want to deal with anything. I can't handle this. You wives handle it and you wives figure it out. And then he's the patriarch again. And so like his inability to have stability in their family was a large part of where the mess and the breakdown all came about, because there's no security in
right,
any of
right.
that. Yeah.
Well, because I think that even with that, like well, first with him waffling, I think part of the
Mhm,
reason why he waffled is because when things are going good, I've always
mhm,
said that if you look at like any workplace or any situation like that,
mhm.
that credit line, when it's time to take credit for a job well done, that line is long as hell. It wraps around the corner. Everybody wants to stand in line. I had a part to do with that. I held a stapler. I gave him the pen to sign the contracts. It was
Yeah,
incredible, right?
yeah, yeah.
Everybody wants to be in line for the credit, but that blame line is short as hell, right?
Mm.
Right? Nobody wants to
Mhm,
be in the blame line. So when things are fat and everything is going well, then
mhm.
Cody wants to be the patriarch. He wants to lead and guide the family. When they were talking about Sister Wives Closet, and they were talking about getting that $2 billion, 2.5. All of a sudden, I got to be the CEO. I got to be in charge. I shouldn't have to ask you guys nothing. I should have absolute say. But when
Mhm,
it gets knocked down, all of a sudden it's not worth anything, or you actually have to do work to build a business up. Now all of a
mm,
sudden, look, y'all need to just do your thing. I think it's a hobby business. I don't want to have
mhm,
nothing to do with it. Right.
mhm,
So that's that. But when you look at the idea of patriarchy, it wouldn't make sense that you would have to have the person who is the spoke that connects all these other people
mhm,
would ultimately have to be the person in
mhm,
charge, because
mhm.
you couldn't rely on one of the other people who it would affect,
Right.
because it's too
Mhm,
open for corruption. It's too apt for
mhm,
corruption.
mhm.
But then at the same time, in order for it to work, you would have to have somebody who not only is generous with their time, but they would have to legitimately, and this is what I was saying about leadership, they would have to be able to put other people ahead of themselves,
Yeah.
other people's wants, desires, and needs ahead
Mhm,
of their own, and
mhm.
be willing to not only put their needs ahead of their own, but be willing to sacrifice their own needs for the
Yeah,
benefit of the other people who they're supposed to be leading.
that's
The
right.
ironic part about it is, and this is kind of what's trippy to me, is that most of the people who think that they should be in that position should never be in that position. They should be within 100 yards of that position, because if you think you can do this, then you're probably not the person
You're
to
not
do it.
equipped to do it.
Right,
That's right.
exactly. You know, if you because it's like if you're the kind of person who thinks they know everything, you probably
Mhm.
don't know anything. But if you're the
Right.
person who thinks that you don't know enough,
Mhm.
you at least have the capacity, probably know more than the other person does. One, two, you have the capacity to learn more.
Yeah.
So technically, they should be looking for somebody who doesn't want to be in it. But if they don't want to be in it, how good are they going to be at it? So that's
Yeah.
one of the challenges I have with them finding that, kind of
Yeah.
squaring that circle for
Yeah.
me.
Which basically much leads us to the point of maybe we should just not do it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's such a hard, like, it seems like it, and again, I don't know if you
Mhm,
guys know somebody. I will open the floor up to anybody. If you know somebody who is participating in polygamy and they
mhm,
think they're doing a good job, and they can tell me or teach me something that I don't know about it, or maybe something I'm missing, I'm open to having the conversation. I'm
mm,
more than open to having a conversation. They can hit me up on my take on reality
mhm.
questions at gmail.com. I will talk to them. I will set it up. I don't care. I'll have the conversation. It's just that I will say, I'll give this one caveat. Be prepared to have the full conversation.
Mm,
Like, because I will have questions. I'm not just going,
mhm.
oh, okay, yeah, that works.
Yeah,
Hey,
yeah, yeah,
that's a good idea,
yeah. Be
but be
prepared to
prepared to
be
have the
challenged.
conversation.
Yeah,
Right, right. We'll have a conversation about it,
yeah.
but I'm open to have the conversation. I'm just saying that for me, I'm challenged with understanding how it could work,
Mhm.
and not work in the sense that you could, I'm about to say trick, you trick people into doing it. You can convince people or persuade people, or people make the decision to do it. I'm
Mhm,
saying where people can feel fulfilled in the decision that they made.
Mm-hmm.
and feel like they're not giving up a whole swath of themselves or
Mm-hmm.
sacrificing a whole swath of themselves in order to make it work. Because
Mm-hmm.
you can make, people are people. We can struggle through most anything, and we can make bad situations work for us, and we can survive those bad situations. But at no point would I argue that those situations are ideal and
Mm.
something you should strive for.
Right.
You know,
Right.
so
Makes for great TV, though.
yeah. I mean, because it's so ripe for destruction. Like it's just ripe.
Yeah, it is.
Oh yeah, this woman is pregnant and she's been sleeping with 5 guys. She don't know who the baby daddy is. Let's get the cameras out. Like that's
Yep.
you know something's
Yep.
gonna happen. I don't know
Yep.
what.
Yep. Something's gonna happen. Yeah, they were onto something when they found this family. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think, and it's like you were saying earlier. I think that it starts with a conversation.
Yeah.
It starts with a conversation because when they first started interviewing them, you say, okay, yeah, so the 4 of you guys been married and everything's been going okay. Oh, you are having trouble with them. You're a little insecure. You seem like you're confident, but I can tell you're not really. And you're dating a what? Oh, okay. Hold on right there. Yeah, we need to sign them up immediately. So like I said, I think that conversation happened. I can see that. I
Yeah.
think that your suspicion may be correct. There was a conversation with TLC.
Yep.
Like, oh, okay. And she's how much younger than you?
That's right.
Oh, okay. And
Mhm.
then you have like all the makings because you have the younger girl, younger wife coming in to an already established family who's been established for 15 years that has some difficulty. You have that younger wife who's going to be looking to have more children. And then you have a first wife who has struggled with fertility issues. Like it's just a lot of stuff that's just layered there. Like they were layered for days as far as content or potential storylines. Like it's just the
Mhm.
way it worked out. Some of the storylines didn't pan out, but it
Mhm.
was there. It was baked into the cake.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. 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 Something maybe someday we'll find out. Although I was saying the other day that how many times do we get the tell-all books from any of these reality shows? I think they may sign their life away for the remainder of their existing lives.
Yeah.
Because we really have not had I mean, I don't know of any. There could be some out there, but, like, there's out of all the reality TV shows, like, it just seems like there should be all kinds of tell-all books after they left, like, even a decade later. Like, reality TV's been around for a while now, so you think but, like, I don't know how long these contracts are, but people definitely have signed things that they're not going to
Right.
speak. Now, that being said, in terms of the kids, though, the kids haven't signed anything that says that.
No.
McKelty had admitted that her and Tony, they could write a book right now and say anything they want. They're not because the show's still going on, and they don't want to jeopardize anybody on the show or like the supporting cast too. Like there's so much more than the people you see on the show. There's, all the cameramen and the producers and the directors and like there's a whole group of people involved that would all be unemployed if the show
Right.
ended. So like that
Right.
kind of responsibility by just selfishly writing a tell-all book now can really, to get your money could really impact people down the road. But, she kind of implied when the show's over.
Yeah.
I'm like, we're ready. We're ready.
Yeah,
And
do it
I
now.
get
Do
it.
it
And
now.
I respect that. And I completely agree with that too. Like it's, to try to take money out of multiple people's pockets like that when you don't have to.
Right.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, I think that part of the challenge is that thank you so much, Stacy Mew.
Thank you.
Part of the challenge is that you could like as a co-cast member or subcast member, they could come in and torch the show.
Mhm.
Because if they come out and make some crazy accusation, true or not, then TLC would have to make the decision as to whether they're going to cut the cast members NDA loose and
Mhm.
allow them to respond because they have NDAs in place. And I think that's a huge reason as to why a lot of
Mhm.
people don't come out and start writing tell-all books after they leave, because they'll have NDAs in place based
Mhm.
on the contracts. Anything that
Mhm.
was filmed or a topic of the show, storyline of the show belongs to the show. So
Mhm.
they very well may not be able to do it for that reason.
Is that
Um,
forever though? Don't NDAs usually expire? I thought they always
well,
had
depending
timelines.
with the entertainment stuff, if
Uh-huh.
you have like because it'll get more into intellectual property as far as like the entertainment
Mm.
contracts are concerned. So it'll be
Mm.
like if you did uh their contracts would be mirrored similarly. I can see their contract being mirrored similarly to, because each one of these contracts is different.
Mhm.
So just to be very clear, but I can see their contract being mirrored similarly to how they construct a lot of SAG contracts.
Mm.
Because when you're a part of the union, they have a contract that you may sign if you participate in a show, that
Mhm.
they have the right to use your likeness, name, and whatever,
Mhm.
and indefinitely forever until the
Mm.
end of time, and
Mm.
all known parts of the universe and unknown
Mhm.
parts of the universe. Like, so they
Mm.
basically own you. This is the whole thing
Mhm.
with like Chappelle or
Mhm.
Prince, or the
Mhm.
art when he was the artist formerly known as Prince, because they
Mhm.
own everything. And so
Mhm.
I can see them doing that as far as the storyline is concerned. So if they have some kind of story that they want to tell that has nothing to do with the show, that was never filmed or talked about on
Mhm.
the show,
Mhm.
that might give them some room to talk about it.
Mhm.
But unfortunately, a lot of the stuff that they would want to talk about, or a publisher may want to give them a book deal for, would be related to
It's gonna be
stuff that
tied
happened on the
into the
show.
show. Mhm.
Right. So I can see that,
Mm.
just so that they can protect themselves, because you may, as a reality star, you may only get paid once, because that's how
Mhm.
they do it. You get paid one time for what
Yeah.
they show on the show. So if they have you on so many seasons, there's a woman named Angela Deem on 90 Day Fiance. They're talking about kicking her off the show because of misbehavior.
Mhm.
She's been on this show for many seasons, but she went on a podcast and she did an interview and talked about the show violated the NDA. They were going to fire her, but they decided to keep her. But they're not going to air her episodes until I think halfway through the season. They'll
Mm.
start her. And
Mm.
by them doing that, that greatly reduces the amount of money they have to pay her. She only
Mm.
gets paid once.
Okay.
But the network and the production company, they keep getting paid. So
Mhm.
like right now, I can go back watch season 1, episode 1 of Sister Wives,
Mhm.
and they get paid for that. Sister
Mm.
Wives don't get paid for that. Like
Mhm.
Christine and Cody, they don't get a check. But
Mhm.
TLC or Discovery, or I think it's TLC, produced it, so they get a check.
Mhm.
Big shout out to Tanya Johnson with the $5 super chat. Robyn is the embodiment of Cody's midlife crisis. Dude has bad taste in his old age. Yeah. And
It's
I think
funny.
that's part of the reason why people didn't like her. Because
Yeah.
that's what she represents. That's what they saw. She was the
Yeah.
midlife crisis. That and
Yeah.
the sports car,
Yeah.
because you can't tell me. And this is what I say. Like, he needed a friend. Like, he needed a friend to say, dude, whatever you do, don't pull up in your sports car. Don't pull up on your motorcycle with them
Mhm.
13 kids, because there's too many parents is going to see that and it'll instantly be turned off by anything you have to say after that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. That's true.
But that was all I had. Did you have anything else?
No, that's all I had too.
Yeah, I want to kill the folks. I went in early. We went in early, so so we won't be up till 3:00 in the morning.
There you go.
So, but yeah, thank you guys so much.
Yeah.
Do you have anything going on, Jenny, that folks should be looking for?
Just the usual Thursday night,
Okay.
continuing to read through Sister Wives. And then also I should probably point out, I don't think I ever have on these lives, that I have a sub channel called Reality TV Breakdown. And that's where I do my Seeking Sister Wives stuff.
Okay.
So, and some other stuff. Welcome to Plathville, I'll still follow. And I did a couple other, I've been doing Vanderpump Rules, but it's such a bad season. I don't think I'm going to do it next year. I've watched it since season 1, episode 1, and I don't know why I'm over it. Maybe I'm over it just because Sister Wives and Seeking Sister Wives has become so sensational that I'm really over that other show now. But I will finish out this season there, and I think we're winding down and getting to the end of it. But definitely when Welcome to Plathville begins, that'll be on Reality TV Breakdown, and my current Seeking Sister Wives stuff is on Reality TV Break It Down. And if you forget the name of it, it's always in my description of all my videos, and you can click on the link.
Awesome. Yep. Okay.
How about you, James? Well, you already shared with us. You got the Ho Tuesday thing coming up starting next week, right?
Oh, this week. Yeah, I'll be doing it.
Is it starting this Tuesday?
Yes. I'll be starting this Tuesday. So it'll be more like a little more relaxed. I won't be as serious in that, but hopefully we'll have some fun. I'll be bringing folks up and we'll be having a good time with it. Check me out. Come back and check me out tomorrow at 7:00 Eastern Standard Time with Amanda and Sarah. Yeah, that should be a good time.
She's great.
So yeah, but thank you guys all so much for coming in, hanging out with us, keeping us lively, keeping us honest, keeping us honest. I appreciate you coming in, Jenny, because I know I dropped the ball on that.
My pleasure.
Thanks for coming through.
No worries.
And before I go, I want to say once again, in case you came in, I don't know when you came in or if you heard me before, Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there.
Yes.
Have a great day. Take care of yourself because there's some people out there who are depending on you and looking for you.
Yes.
All right. Thanks so much, guys.
Bye, James. Thanks.
All right. See you later. That's my take, and I'm out.